3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Up only.
Hello and welcome to Up Only TV. I'm Ledger. This is the Cobie episode. I'm going to turn the mic on the man himself, the main host of Up Only TV. Cobie will be with us in just a moment. First, let me tell you about FTX. Go to uponly.tv/FTX. Check it out today. You can make a trade there. You can sell the bounce. You can FOMO in. You can do anything you need to do on the FTX app. uponly.tv/FTX. Track your portfolio as you've known and loved for a long time and earn yield on your tokens as well, 5% beyond $10,000. Thanks to them for being our partners. Let's get to the show. Cobie, welcome.
Hiya.
Now, where's my shortcut? There you are.
You were just bragging about your shortcut.
Like, yeah, I got this shortcut. Check it out. And now I'm like, where is it? Here it is. I found it. Look at that. Seamless.
You just bragged about it. You were like, check out these new shortcuts I've got.
Check this
Don't
out.
work.
Check this out. Seamless as could be. How you doing?
I'm all right, mate. It's like weird coming on where I know that I'm going to get questions, because when I come on and like I'm asking the questions, I don't really care what happens. It's like I just say something stupid, don't matter. Whereas like now, people are going to think I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
It's inevitable.
I don't think very many people actually think you're an idiot, at least once they...
Yeah, I know, but when they finish this episode...
That's just imposter syndrome. I know you've done a bit of your origin story through many episodes, some AMAs and stuff that you've done, but we need the like primary source, like year you got in. You said 2012, and what I want to know is like, you know, you made it through multiple cycles. Most people didn't. You weren't the only person in crypto. You're just the only person left from back then. So like, what was it that allowed you to make it through all of the carnage and mayhem? You lived through Mt. Gox and Bitfinex hacks and all kinds of stuff that most people don't even know happened. So tell us the backstory.
Yeah. So I got in 2012, but didn't really do that much. Like that was like the first time I heard about and bought Bitcoin. It was like mid 2012 or late 2012.
Yeah.
And then I didn't really ever think about it again. Like imagine that. Imagine if you could just not think about Bitcoin. I didn't think about it. I bought some, I didn't think about it for a pretty long time. Half a year or so. And then I thought about it again because there was a bubble in April 2013. The price went all the way to like, I don't know, I can't remember, $300 or something.
That was before the $1,200 spike.
Yeah, so there was like a double bubble 2013. And I got back on my radar again in 2013. And then like throughout 2013, I gradually went down the rabbit hole. So if you go on my like Jordan Fish Twitter account, I tweet about Bitcoin a few times in 2013, and I used the like Bitcoin tipper bot to like tips on Bitcoin to one of my friends through 2013. And then by the end of 2013 was when I was like, I think I understand the science. Like I thought, like when I went fully mad, I guess. And then ever since then, I guess there hasn't been a single day where I didn't think about Bitcoin. So I wish I could go back to 2012 for a day of peace.
I'm actually kind of amazed you made it like a year without it consuming your life. Like it was just a thing that was there for quite a while before it really, really hit like the everyday.
Yeah. I just think like it was just a thing then. Like it wasn't I didn't have much money. I definitely didn't have much money in Bitcoin. And it was just like, I was bored. It was a cool thing. But yeah, and like the only person that I think is still active now that I knew from back then that was in earlier than me was Bob Laxative, who back then was called King BTC. I followed him. He was the first crypto Twitter account I ever saw. and I followed him because he made like some good altcoin calls, and they were like trading on Crypto, and I was like, how is he doing this? And the market cap of everything then was like $5,000.
He had to be about 14 at the time too, because I've met him in real life.
Yeah, he's like still young in it, whereas I'm a boomer. So yeah, I followed him back then, and I followed him on my normal account, and he was tweeting about crypto like 12 times a day. And I started to feel like I was doing that, but like crypto back then was like seen as this like gray area drug money type thing. So I just made a separate account to like, okay, I'm just going to do what King BTC, I'm going to do what Bob Laxey was doing, and just separate it off and carve it off, because like all these people now think I'm like a drug dealer or something. Like people I know in real life think I'm a drug dealer. So yeah, and then like 2013 onwards was like basically carnage, right? So like we've had dumps and stuff in this cycle, and people be like, oh, May was awful. But 2014 was like the absolute collapse of Mt. Gox, similar level drawdowns, but like just brutal sideways pain for multiple years afterwards. Like it didn't really recover till 2016, 2017 from the top in 2013. So in some ways, I think being introduced to crypto then made a lot of people turn into survivors, because you see like Loomdar and Path and stuff now, they're all of a similar era. They got in 2013, 2014. And if you had to live through every possible centralized exchange being hacked, like Mt. Gox got hacked, Crypto got hacked, like all of them, Bitfinex got hacked, BTC eventually got hacked by the government. You got into this mindset of like nothing is safe. Back then, every single altcoin was virtually going to zero, no matter, like it was a game of chicken. So they weren't safe either. The only thing that was safe was holding your own private keys of Bitcoin. That was the only possible safe action you could take. So if you wanted to make a trade, you send something to an exchange, you make the trade, and then you withdraw. And if you're holding dollars, then you like pray it doesn't get hacked in the meanwhile. And like if you were doing stuff on like a small shitcoin exchange, it wasn't just everything goes to your MetaMask back then. You had to download the wallet, install the wallet, sync the blockchain, move them to that chain. Sync the blockchain. So people became complacent about those things, and then they got hacked and lost those assets, and they learned over time, okay, we don't do that. So I think it created this this sort of attitude to crypto where like nothing's safe. You just have to survive, and like don't believe in anything else, any alternative asset, because they're all going to go to zero eventually, which over time as crypto evolved was actually potentially a hindrance, because it meant you sold stuff too early. Like I remember when Solana was at like $80-90, Path was like, this is sell everything. This is the absolute top of Solana. I've seen this chart before. It only goes down from here, and then it like tripled or whatever. So I think it was just like if you had this common sense of like risk management, spread your assets around, make sure you're really reducing rug vectors, then you were probably okay, I think. I think the other people that didn't make it were like really, really, really all in, and I always like had a job and like did other things. So
yeah, did you or at what point did you start taking key security seriously? So like especially downloading wallets, a lot of times the wallets themselves would be compromised, and then you expose your whole computer. So like, did you have a computer that was like, all right, this is my serious Bitcoin, because it's pretty hardware wallet, right? And then like another computer or something where you're like, this is, I don't know what this shitcoin is, I'm gonna go put it over here. Did you create some practices for yourself early on? Yeah,
I mean a little bit. Like if I'm honest, I didn't really have very much money in crypto. So it was like, oh, if I lose that, it's all right. So maybe I was a little bit late on doing this versus where I should have been. I definitely had, my granddad gave me a laptop when I was in my first year of uni, because I needed a Windows laptop for something. And I never really used it, but instead of like for university, but instead I used it as my like shitcoin wallet installer. So it was like, there's nothing on here apart from like
feather coin,
useless coins I hold for like a week. So
yeah. You said you started without very much. Have you ever said before like how much you started with, or like what your early cost basis was? Was it like sub $1,000 or something like that? And then you
I put like a few £100 into crypto ever, basically, like between 200 and 300, I think. So like in dollars, that's probably like $1,000 because of British pounds.
really
No, it's like $500 or something, I think, in total. And then like never really put anything else extra in. I actually did put money in for the first time ever in 2020 because I was making an investment somewhere and they only accepted a bank wire. What? And like that project basically went to zero, I think. I should have known. They weren't crypto native. But
so for the most part, when you took money out, that money was out, versus in 2020 that was the only time where you really put something back in that was previously taken out. Yeah, pretty much. And like I got very lucky very early. Like I bought at really good times. And very, very early on, I made some like very good altcoin trades that like set me into a position where I was like, holy shit, I'm good at this. I wasn't good at it. Like anyone that thinks they're good at it when they've just started is wrong. like you join in a bull market and you manage to successfully trade altcoins. Like it doesn't mean you're good at it. It just means there was a bubble. But I watched I watched a video by a guy called Bill Still, who was he was like an economist, and at the time I was like getting into all these like doomer economists who were telling me the world was going to end because I liked that idea, felt like it was deserved. And like one day this Bill Still dude is shilling a coin called Quark coin, and I'm like knowledge wise new to crypto. So I've been in for a year and a half, but I didn't think about it for a year. So I'm kind of in my first few months in crypto, like sort of from a learning perspective. And this Bill Still guy goes, Bitcoin only uses one hashing algorithm, SHA-256. Quark coin uses 7. And I'm like, that's 7 times better then. Well, if it uses 7, I need to buy it right now. So I bought it, found out how to bought it on Cryptsy, made a Cryptsy account, bought Quark coin. And then Quark coin, this video gets passed around. I think I watched it on the first day. This video goes viral for back then, which means it's got 2,000 views or something. And then during the week that I bought Quark coin, I think my account got locked or something. My Cryptsy account got locked or something. Or there was a bug in Cryptsy. I can't remember, but I couldn't sell. And I was like stuck holding this position. And the typical thing in crypto where you're stuck holding something is like, okay, what does it do? Like, is 7 hashing algorithms good? And it turns out that doesn't mean anything. That's completely fucking pointless. It's just like a gimmick. So I was like, well, shit, I need to sell it then. And the point I figured out, I need to sell this, just happened to be the top. Like I didn't make a good trade. I got like super lucky and like 10x'd my Bitcoin or something. After that, I did a couple of others. And there was a guy that joined Twitter called Jeebus911, Jeremy. And he DM'd me like, this coin is literally going to go 100x next week and he had this like weird thesis that sounded just like totally insane. And I was like, this guy is so nuts that I like believe it. Let's do it. I put like something in and it went like 72x in the next week. He was just right. And I was like bought the absolute bottom and I was like, well, he said it's going 100x. It's like 72 now. I'm just selling. And it was so illiquid. I think I like created the top or something. I don't remember. No, I think it went up and I think it actually went to 125x if I remember correctly. So I sold way too early, but I didn't care. Still got out.
Yeah, Jiva still sold basically the top. And then because of those like 2 trades, I was like, it was like I put in way more than I'd actually put into crypto virtually straight away. Then obviously bear market happened. So like I bought virtually the bottom of Bitcoin, increased my Bitcoin by quite a lot by trading altcoins, and then my Bitcoin lost like the majority of its value, and I spent my time like just figuring out between like every now and again like what trade to make, if there was anything interesting. Normally there wasn't, and started a multi-year process of making every possible mistake that you can make in crypto, but making sure that I only made them small enough so that it never really wiped me out. So like tried margin trading without knowing what I was doing when Bitfinex released it, was not good at it at first. But I tried it with like, 2% of my account to see like how I would have done if I'd used the whole thing. Like lost some coins on Bitcoin Builder, which was a GOX exchange, and in and out of GOX exchange. While GOX was going down, you could basically you could speculate on whether GOX was liquid or not. But they had like a bug where loads of the Bitcoin just went missing. So like even if you successfully speculated, like they had this weird negative bug where bounces were just swapping with each other's bounces or something. And so that was like kind of like getting the equivalent of rugged today, I guess. Had stuff on exchanges that died, like blah, 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 blah.
So the first big multiples that you had, was that after the 2013 top when Bitcoin was already on the way down, or was that still kind of like in mid-cycle on the way up for Bitcoin?
It was 10 years ago, but I'll guess. I think Quarkcoin was before the Bitcoin top, and I think other stuff was just afterwards, in that sort of 4-week period after, where smaller assets benefit from Bitcoin's price still being high and people wanting to continually casino. But
so it's very similar.
They haven't yet recognized it's over.
2017 top, a bunch of altcoins run.
Yeah, they topped out like 1 to 3 months later, right? So it was very similar to that. But yeah, they were the like first big ones. And then like throughout the next couple of years, I was doing a computer science degree, and I tried to like find edge in using that. And like edge back then was like, is this kind of scam? Like, does it have like a secret pre-mine? Have they like written in the code some way where the developer owns all the coins, or something like that? And like half the time, if you just identified that, you would avoid buying scam. The one that did like best for me in the really early days was I figured out that Crypty, which was today's equivalent of Binance, had an API information leak where when they were adding a new market, they'd extend their API index by 1. So it'd be like market 50 would be the current market listed, and then the API would go to market 51, and you could query the API to get the asset name and like see what wallet they'd added and stuff. And then you'd go find a place to buy whatever they were adding, and then you deposit it to the wallet, because you could deposit it before the market came open, because you could generate yourself an address with the API. So you'd deposit it, and then as soon as they open the market, everyone else would be stuck in the I need to send coins stage, and you just put the sell order. You'd be the one sell order. And for some reason, it took like months for people to, like the initial buyer, to figure out being the first buyer was always bad. So you were always buying from me. I'd put it like 100x up, and someone would go, I'll purchase that. I'm first. I must be early. The market's only opened. So I did that for ages, and that was like just like free multiples basically, until I leaked it or some other people figured it out, and then the alpha was erased because
everybody knew.
And then I like did bits of that, but honestly just didn't think about crypto as much as I do now, because I was at university and like I had hobbies that were not this. Like afterwards I had a job until like throughout the entire 2017 run, I had a job until a couple of years ago. So yeah, like I didn't think about it as much and just like played it safe, I guess.
So if we back up a little bit, when you were first getting interested, that's how you survived. You were already doing some risk management and basically not taking things seriously. But were you ever fascinated by Bitcoin and like kind of the underlying arguments, or did you think of it as a monetary experiment, or like some higher level economic sense of things?
You mean like did I believe in the mission?
Yeah. Did you believe in the mission, or did you want number to go up?
Yeah. When I was younger, I was a lot more motivated as a human being by impulse and emotion and stuff. So Bitcoin as an alternative financial system instantly clicked for me. It was like 100% like I believe it. Nearly every one of my friends struggled with money in some way. Family, friends and stuff were all affected by 2008 or whatever other mismanaged financial crisis, or honestly just mismanaged monetary policy. Banks had atrocious reputations, often stemming from like lending practices that were like unfair or just like anti-customer or whatever. Governments have obviously got similar reputations, and it's only got worse over the last decade. And in both of those professions, as an outsider, it felt like the people running the show were unaffected from the hardship that like regular people felt from their actions or from these or financial tragedy. We could not have seen this coming. And it's like, how come the people at the top or in the government or in the banks, how come they didn't, they should have lost their jobs. They should have been like, okay, well, we not socialize this loss from like people. We take your company to pieces or something. I don't know. I just that
was especially like after the financial crisis too, as I remember in the States, at least, it was like, okay, some car company, they're definitely going bankrupt and we need to restructure and figure all these things out. They're like, all you past employees who are trying to retire, just retired, we're just going to take your pensions away. But like, if that's the way we're going to keep this place in business, like you said, the CEO stays on or whatever.
And exactly. In some instances, it wasn't just that they're unaffected. It's like people seem to be benefiting from this. So when I discover there's an alternative option, of course, I'm like, hell yeah. And I see the, Genesis block text and I'm like, yeah, dude, this is the shit. So I thought, surely this must be it, right? Someone has created something in response to, what I'm seeing in sort of society, and like this sort of anarchistic, maybe naive, just post-teenager state that I was in. But I saw Bitcoin, I saw like the potential removal of middlemen, the removal of government interference from money supply. You know the whole spiel by now, right? Like what Bitcoin's going to be. And I saw those things and I thought, surely this is the solution. Because there's like either corruption or just incompetence in the existing system, and there needs to be something else. I think if it didn't click for me at all, I probably wouldn't have made money because, I mean, I said how quickly I sold Quark. I was like, I'm in. And then I was like, wait, no, I'm out. It's a scam.
Well, you realized that was not the same as Bitcoin in terms of the...
Yeah, and I've never really done well trading or holding or speculating on something where I don't personally believe in it, because I'm naturally very skeptical, and I find it really easy to find the flaws in something, reasons why it might not work, and to notice like downsides. So I can talk myself out of things really, really, really easily. So if when it looks bad, if something looks bad and I don't find I believe it, I just go like, fuck this then, I'm getting out, bye.
It was easier to
I've done that many times. I bought like Avalanche shitcoins at like the bottom, it's gone up 100x, and it's dumped back to my entry, and I've sold for break even because I just didn't believe in it. And I was like, I'll just leave then. I don't care. It's like, but if I did believe, I could have sold like this complacency bounce. It makes sense that happens in all markets. But because I believed in Bitcoin, I think I was able to make money. Otherwise, I just wouldn't have. Like the first Gox failing, I would have been like, I've got to go.
Yeah. Were there people that you looked up to at the time? Like I think two of the people I think of that were definitely around were like Eric Voorhees was very early and very like fundamentally motivated. Andreas was doing a ton of stuff. Were there people like that you looked up to and kind of helped you stick with it and go through multiple cycles?
Basically, those two, especially Andreas. I had I got to meet Andreas a couple of years ago for the first time. Like obviously we'd followed each other on Twitter.com for like 7 or 8 years at that point, and he was doing a talk somewhere. I was in the same building in a different thing, and realized, and I just went down and said hello, and then we got to go for spent like the part of the next day morning together, went and got breakfast, then went and got lunch, and just like chatted about stuff and life and things. And I think it was not long after he got donated a bunch of stuff after Roger Ver mocked him. I don't know if you remember that.
Very vaguely.
Was it Roger Ver or someone else? Someone mocked Andreas for not being rich, basically, even though he was being in from like day one, and he only had like 200K in crypto or something. But like, he was the person that everyone had seen as like sort of the spokesperson for crypto in absence of Satoshi. He was the person that whose video you watched, and when
it was Roger Ver.
Was it Ver? Yeah. And he like mocked him and was like, how come you're not a millionaire? And Andreas was like, I had a terrible financial situation. I had to sell stuff to sustain myself. I was doing like Bitcoin advocacy and selling books, and then people just like donated him $1 million or something the next day.
Awesome.
Like it's like kind of like a Constitution DAO type event or something.
Would
where
you
it's
say
like
Roger's
we all contribute.
Would you say Roger's one of the people that you're most disappointed in, or I mean, are you? In terms of like kind of the OGs that...
Not really, because I didn't know about him very much until Mt. Gox, and the first thing I knew about Roger Ver was him lying to me about Mt. Gox being solvent with his eyes. Like you could see his eyes going.
Yeah.
I think Mt. Gox is solvent because I am reading this thing. It was clear he was reading out a statement, and I was like, so that's the first time I learned about him. And
how did you make it through Gox? Did you have coins on the exchange? Did you get...
No, never used it. I opted into the Gox rug because I wanted to speculate on whether Gox coin, whether they were solvent. And there was a service someone put up called Bitcoin Builder, and the loophole was if you had a certain type of account, it was like a verification level, your API still worked, so you could transfer your Bitcoin in Mt. Gox to other similar verification level accounts. So if you had Goxcoin, you could move your Goxcoin to this dude's Gox wallet, this guy who set up this exchange, and then he would sell IOUs for these coins on a site. So there was just an order book that was like Bitcoin to Gox Bitcoin, and it would trade between like 1 to 1 and like 0.05 to 1, but like that, depending on what news came out. And I wanted to speculate on that because I thought, well, if I believe there's a 5% chance that Gox is liquid, and I'm able to buy coins a fifth of the price, then it's worth taking that bet. It's worth that risk. Yeah, I can 20x my Bitcoin if it turns out to be right. So I decided to speculate on that. But by the time I signed up and looked at the like order history, I don't even think there was a chart. I think it was like order history of prices written down or something. But because it was so volatile, I decided to trade that instead. And that was a really terrible idea because that site did not work. Like some days your account would be negative, like there was no history. So it was like, how many coins did I even deposit into here? I think I put like 10 Bitcoin in there or something, and like traded it up insanely high. And I think I got out with like 8 Bitcoin because it was like, yeah, well, maybe you made money, but we honestly don't really know. The database broke.
Is it hard for you to think about 10 Bitcoin as being like $500,000 today? Like, do you still have a hard time normalizing the dollars that something has gone over the years?
Not with the round numbers, so like a whole Bitcoin, no. But when it's like 0.0073 blah blah blah, and it's like you see the dollar price of that, you're like, what? Like that was like a fraction of a penny. That's weird. But it's easy to acclimatize to the Bitcoin price because you see it everywhere. So
yeah. But when you see something that feels like dust and it's like $500, you think back on your life and like $500 is still a lot of money in real life.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, kind of like, I guess it's weird.
On
maybe.
on the Gox side of things, do you think the Mt. Gox hack changed the direction of Bitcoin significantly, or how different do you think the Bitcoin space would be, or crypto space would be today if Gox had never really had the like hack and, you know, lost coins? Whatever percentage of the crypto economy just disappeared with that event, because I mean that was bigger than what Coinbase is today in terms of market share. It was like what, 70% of all crypto or something.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think there's arguments on both sides, and I've never really thought about it in great depth before, to be honest. So I'm not going to have a very satisfying answer. But the most interesting thing I can think about in the realm of this question is whether the massive price run-up would have happened at all, because Gox was the main exchange and the like a majority of the volume, and Gox created the Willy bot. Mark allegedly, I don't know if this is, I'm getting sued by BitBoy, so I'm going to start saying allegedly. Allegedly, Mark created the Willy bot, whose whole purpose was to, I guess, repurchase the Bitcoins that they knew they'd lost. So they were like market buying constantly, trying to buy back all the Bitcoin that they lost from the market. I don't even really understand how this works if they're buying on their own exchange, but they've lost the Bitcoin. I guess they're trying to become the owner of the lost Bitcoin so they can neutralize. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So they're trying to become the owner of all the lost Bitcoin so they can make their
trying to
users whole.
Ponzi the Ponzi of it, basically.
Yeah, but at the same time, they're just pumping the price like crazy.
Yeah.
Like they're just sending Bitcoin like a vertical line upwards because there's constant buy pressure, and making it more and more expensive for them to buy back. And like, I don't know in practice if it actually had any impact. Like, I don't know if Willybot is over, like just over remembered as like an influential factor or something. I'm not sure. I haven't really looked into it very much. So I don't know, but it's interesting to think like what would have been.
Yeah. Probably at least helped establish security principles and like getting back to what's important to maintain in crypto, and like trying to cut out more middlemen and stuff probably was enhanced by that event. But I mean, so many people must have just been gone forever because of Mt. Gox. And now they're getting some coins back, or at least some of them are.
Yeah, some of my friends got like fully wiped in Gox. I knew these two dudes in a band who's like a very, very successful, famous band, put some of their crypto into Gox. And like, I think they had like a trading bot or something that they purchased that was like turning it into like productive asset for them. I don't know how the trading bot was doing. But they just got fully wiped. Like, and what the worst thing I think is like this weird psychological effect that it has where you're like, well, I had however many Bitcoin. To get that back, I have to pay this much. So I'm actually not bothering with Bitcoin. I think that's what a lot of people did. It's like, I've lost that. I will never get the same amount back. So I'm actually not going to buy any. And I'm going to hope I get something back from that later. Instead of just waiting and like buying near the bottom and being like, my investment thesis is still right. But I got like fully rugged on this thing. So I need to, again, which is a shame. So I think like that was maybe the worst thing. Cause not only did people get rugged, they also then were in this psychological state where they couldn't actually like force themselves to rebuy because of how hard they got rugged, which is a shame.
So when do you think you transitioned into like embracing life as a trader? Like, is there a point where you remember I can look at charts and start to visualize some of this stuff, or I can, you know, purely play the speculative side of it and understand more of the psychological elements that go into the way people play these coins? When did that stuff click?
You know, I don't really know, honestly. And I would never actually say that I've been like a full-time like trader as a profession. I like did it as a hobby alongside doing other stuff. You know, like people do side hustles, they sell shoes or whatever. They do drop shipping or something. That was like what like trading or speculating was for me. And in that way, I think I was actually just an example of product market fit of like the new wave of Robinhood users, right? Like I was a person who didn't see a path to financial independence through the traditional system, and therefore realized you need to do something on the side, and you may as well make that thing have high upside. And I was very risk tolerant, so this like seems fine to me. This works, and I never feel like I was good necessarily as a day trader. Like, you know, you have all this stuff now where like super sophisticated traders like arguing whether the price is a random walk or like Brownian like geometric motion shit, and then people doing variance and dependence tests to check, like say, oh no, it's actually not a random walk, and like market's not efficient on this shit, and they're fucking geniuses. And I don't care about any of that stuff personally. I can't do it. I'm never going to be good at it. And big respect to the people that are. But like I'm not good at that. And I don't really think the lifestyle for that is like super healthy for me either. I've got a very addictive personality. Terminally online, most people I guess will know I've got very addictive personality. But what I found myself good at was taking sort of an anthropological look at markets and just trying to look into the past to find answers about the future. And the cyclical nature of the crypto market and the endurance of the thesis meant it was relatively easy to know when like the bottom and the top is. It's been much harder this cycle for Bitcoin because it sort of stopped looking so much like those previous cycles. And my entire view on the markets is very simple. It's just based on like what has happened in history. Things are not so much likely to change in the future. Not so much like, you know, the rainbow chart or something where it's going to do like this exact pattern every time. But like you can look at other assets in similar places to where Bitcoin is now and start referencing them. So I think it was partially just instinct. Like, I think this is a good place to buy. I think this is the bottom. If it goes much lower than this, it's over anyway. And like, this is parabolic and stupid now, and I'm very skeptical anyway, so I'll get out now. And I found taking those actions, like when I do think it's getting stupid and it looks parabolic, and de-risking or like taking money out of Bitcoin and putting in dollars for the like a couple of months or years or whatever, made it so much easier to have conviction in the long term, because you didn't need to have conviction when you're sat at a minus 95% or minus 80%. You don't worry, it's going to come back. Instead, you just have to go, does this investment thesis still make sense? Yes, okay, this seems like a reasonable place to like start re-entering then. You don't need to buy the bottom, you only need to buy close enough to the bottom, you don't need to sell the top, you sell within 10-15% of top and it's fine. So I don't know. And then like I think people always put they can make stories about what happened and like sort of rationalize things different to how they were, right? So like I posted a tweet in like 2015 at the absolute bottom of the market saying longing the bottom or something, longing the bottom at 19166 or something like that. And I opened a long at the absolute bottom, and that looks cool, right? Like I was able to identify the bottom and long the bottom, but then like I didn't think it was the bottom for the next however many years. You kind of go like, there are still several scenarios where this can go down. Like it just looks cool because you say you were long the bottom. But like over time, you get to learn, okay, right, well, actually I was right there. Here are the reasons why I was right. Here are the reasons why I might not have been right. Here are the reasons why I was wrong about this other thing. And you just learn from your own mistakes, I think.
So before we get into like, I want to dig into Ethereum and some of the things that you really got, you know, interested in from a tech perspective and all that. But I think one more element back to the kind of 2014 realm is, do you think you got addicted to crypto because you made life-changing money, or did you make life-changing money after you got addicted to crypto? And how did it affect you mentally when you realized you had made an amount of money that you might not have ever thought you could get, you know, have before?
did I get addicted to crypto before or after? God, I don't know. Probably, I think before, like, I did the full like rabbit hole thing while I just had like a small amount of Bitcoin, and Bitcoin was going up to like 1,000, and I was like a little bit all like in too deep and neglecting other things in my life, like my university course or my ex-girlfriend or whatever. Sorry, Laura. But like so I think before probably, but I don't know, like I get addicted to loads of stuff and like then I get bored of it like 6 months later. So
you're not
crypto's
like
been a thing that's been
in League of Legends.
No, I suck at League of Legends. Like it's the exact opposite. I'm so bad at that. It's strange because I'm normally okay, above average at most things that I try if I really commit to them. And this is like my brain don't work. I got brain lag or something when I play League. But how it affected me, I don't know. If I'm being totally honest, I don't think it's a very good answer or a very likable answer. But if I'm totally honest, I always felt like I was just like a temporarily embarrassed millionaire. If I'm being like totally honest, I know that it just sounds like arrogant or like, I don't know, whatever. I know that it's not a very likable answer. But I think if I'm really honest with myself, I deep down believed that eventually I would just be a millionaire or a multimillionaire. And I just like, oh, well, okay, is this then?
That's
like,
the way you did it. But you had the capacity to make it. I mean, you were doing computer science, so I'm sure you were interested in tech and stuff anyway. Startups.
Yeah, and I guess also now without crypto and without investing in anything else, just through work, I would also be a millionaire anyway. Mm-hmm. Like other things I've worked on have like sold or been acquired or are worth enough so that I would be anyway. So like I think if I'm really being honest, that's how I felt. But I also think loads of people feel like that. I think it's quite common in the West to be born with around average intelligence, and the way media, entertainment, and society is set up sort of tells you that's what's going to happen to you. And then like the process of life, like is just slowly being introduced to the idea that might not be true. I genuinely think a lot of people feel like that. But
the wag me attitude, or at least I'm going to make it, even if not everyone is. So, did you change anything significantly about your life? And I guess, did that philosophy, that mentality, did that allow you to keep your financial assets like at risk and in crypto markets?
Didn't really change anything about my life. Obviously, like you are in a different position to what you ever would have been. So like, it's really hard to say. It's really hard to answer because there's this like human, like fourth dimensional fork of yourself that's living a different life. And I'm being like, well, no, we're just basically the same. We had done the same stuff. And like, who fucking knows? Maybe that guy's like, no, we're not. So I don't know. I think the main difference is it opens you up to be a lot more risk tolerant. So you can make decisions elsewhere in your life that you might not have otherwise taken. Like if you get a promotion at work and you get offered additional stock options versus additional salary, you can just go, I'll take the stock options, I'll add risk. Like those kind of things. And then when you have that sort of solid base, I guess, and you feel comfortable, I think your personality becomes a little bit more yourself. Like the worst things about you are amplified and the best things about you are amplified because you don't feel like you have to be a certain type of person to gain approval or like fit in somewhere. It's like, it doesn't matter actually so much if people don't like me for like who I am. That's actually okay because I don't need them to like me for anything. So I think that's probably a change, but I reckon that is like more noticeable in people that are very close to me or like my friends than anyone else.
Yeah. So you made some money, you increased your Bitcoin stack a lot, and then Bitcoin went to crap. Was there a part in that where you're like, oh, I got all this Bitcoin now that I made slinging some shitcoins? Did you call them shitcoins at the time?
Just altcoins, I think.
Altcoins back then. But you've increased your Bitcoin. Bitcoin goes to like $180 or something. Did you think there was a chance that like it just still dies? The failed experiment, or were you pretty comfortable at that time thinking that there was another leg, another repeat of something that looked like the 2013 cycle?
So in that bear market, I tried to outpace the drop of Bitcoin versus the dollar by increasing my Bitcoin.
So
by trading
maintain your US dollar stack.
Yeah. And like it was like a total waste of time in hindsight. Obviously, I know that now, but I'm not so bright, so I'm a slow learner.
I can't hold dollars. I have to hold, Feathercoin to make it.
But like part of the reason was I didn't want to hold dollars on a centralized exchange, and but I didn't want to take my money out of the ecosystem either. Like I didn't want to go to local Bitcoins and sell everything, put it in my bank.
The dollars were the most vulnerable thing on the centralized exchange in your mind versus like,
it was just leaving assets there that was vulnerable.
Yeah.
So like I would deposit to an exchange, make the trade, withdraw, wait for the sell point, deposit to the exchange, sell, like withdraw.
There's no stable coin.
Like there was no stable coin. Like you could maybe have dollars on some exchanges, like with a certain amount of confidence that you'd be okay. But like I always had none. And like Bitfinex was one of the exchanges I would use the most back then. I don't use it at all anymore. But back then it was one of the ones I would use quite a lot. And because I took this approach, like I was using the exchange when they lost their entire customer funds through the hack, but I wasn't affected by it because I like was holding crypto, like not on the exchange, thankfully. So like I was trying to keep a USD by like increasing Bitcoin basically, and that was kind of possible back then because like altcoins were not as correlated to Bitcoin, although in hindsight there was actually just a slow death. Like stuff would like pump like 1.5x instead of 100x, and it would immediately die, go to zero. So I tried to do that, but I think it was just a waste of time.
Were you stalking Bitcoin Talk and stuff, going through all the cycles?
Yeah, because the metagame evolves in crypto quite a lot, and I guess we can talk about the identifying the metagame a bit later on. But there was a time where the metagame was just buy the thing before it goes on the big exchange, and the big exchange was Cryptsy, and then it was MintPal, and then it was Bittrex, and then the metagame shifted to buy the thing before it goes on the exchange before the big exchange. So if the big exchange was Bittrex, and then the small exchange was, I can't remember, whatever, let's make it up, LedgerX, then, oh wait, that's actually a real thing. Ledger Exchange, status exchange.
There you go.
Then you had to buy before something got listed on status exchange because you knew that was probably eventually going to get listed on Bittrex, but then it made this other exchange into the biggest exchange. So all the volume was on the worst exchanges because people were trying to be early to the thing. So then the metagame shifted again to, okay, what is the way to get the coins before on any exchange? And that was to mine or cloud mine them from a Bitcoin Talk thread. So
it's a whole genre that I forgot about.
Yeah.
It was basically dead by the time I got into crypto. So the exchange flows when I got into crypto, and probably most of our audience, was this is where alts are popping off, and then there's no KYC, and then they start enabling KYC, and everybody flows out. So it was like Poloniex, Bittrex, Binance, kind of in order through the 2017 cycle. So you said it was Cryptsy, MintPal, and then Bittrex. Was that like before Bittrex again, like post Polo, or?
Honestly, can't really remember.
Okay, so they were
all blurs into one.
A slew of them back in between like 2015, 2016. Before
Poloniex. I can't remember. It all sort of blurs into one.
Yeah, and then Poloniex really exploded early 2017. That was kind of where the first part of the 2017 cycle blew up. So did you basically keep everything that you had in crypto and then realize that it was starting to repeat itself in 2015, 2016? That was also like when Ethereum was coming into form. Were you familiar with what was happening in the Ethereum landscape? Are you a co-founder of Ethereum?
No, I'm not a co-founder of Ethereum. I actually took that out now. I got the horrible blue badge. Took it out of my bio. But what I was, I guess, what I try and do, I guess, is make sure that when everything looks terrible, you're not in your most vulnerable position. Because like, it always looks horrible at the bottom. It always looks like it's going to zero. And the only way that you can be objective about that is if you're not at the max pain moment of like, maximum drawdown. So I would always try and make sure, like it's really easy to have conviction if you don't have to sit through the drawdowns, I think. And then you can identify, okay, it does look like it's recovering. Let's do it. Or this looks like it could be a bottom. I'll buy here. I'm willing to lose 10 to 30% in case I'm wrong, but like surely the risk from buying here can't be like
it's not what it was.
Yeah. So I think it's important to like that's why I think the HODL meme is like it's a bit controversial for me. Like I think it is really, really good for a lot of people who are not going to look at crypto all the time and going to be disciplined about HODL.
You can say a bit controversial, and this is just, from memory, but I think to paraphrase the quote, I think he said something along the lines of HODLing is for poor people.
At the absolute top. Yeah. Look, it was at the absolute top. It's like, if you HODL now, you're going to let all of your gains, you're going to see them evaporate and you're going to be at the bottom thinking like, what if it is over? And if you think the chance of Bitcoin not making it is 30%, like not being a thing in like, a bunch of years, then what percentage do you think it will be when you're at the absolute bottom feeling absolute max pain and your car breaks down and you need some of that money and you become a forced seller? Or like, does the percentage that you think it doesn't make it go up? So if there is a chance you think it doesn't make it and you think you can't be disciplined, I do think it is better to sell when it's reasonably high and to buy back when it's reasonably low, because I feel it's easier to have that conviction if you're not just sitting through massive pain and like you're able to live a life that you want along the way. At the same time, this is one of the old models of crypto, like if you look if you look at the like historic of how it's worked historically, it'll work perfectly. If a super cycle comes, it will destroy people because they'll sell after the first 3 years and they'll go up for 7 years. They never get to buy. So that's why I think it's controversial, right? Because like I think like anti-HODL at the absolute 2017 top was like definitely the right position to be in, but I don't think anti-HODL is the correct position to be in for the entirety of the future. And for 95% of people, or 90% or 70%, I don't know, they probably should just like hold and like not look at it, because markets are hard and they're designed to strip you of your money. But like what I did and what I try to do is make sure that I don't have to have conviction at the absolute bottoms. I'm not sitting in massive drawdowns. Just because I think it makes it easy, like mentally easier for me. And like it's much easier to buy the bottom if you're not emotional about it.
Did that cause you to have like fake out false tops or something in 2017 especially sticks out in the sense that it was such a large cycle, $200 at the bottom, all-time high breakout, 1,200, and then go to 20K. Like after it topped at 5K and goes back down to 1,800 or whatever it was, 3K to 1,800, 5K to 24. There's those types of like 50, 60% drawdowns, at least on Wix. Were you looking at some of those and thinking, all right, it's over, I need to be out? Or were those periods where you had started to prepare yourself for a drawdown that you can confidently buy? Or how did you approach that?
Yeah, so earlier on, when I first got into doing this, I think I was much better at it. Now, every time there's a drawdown, I go like, what are the possible scenarios that could be happening? Like, try and calculate the probabilities of each of them. Well, loads of them say it's over, and I can really think about the ones where it's over in great depth. So like every time there's a major dip, I think it's like very reasonable. And I certainly like personally consider, what is the probability chance that this is the top now? And the higher you go, that probability chance increases. At least personally for me, like you have to estimate these probabilities, right? Like it's not science. You just go, what do I think? Do I think it's over? And all the way up in 2017 on every single dip, I was like, okay, could this be it? Like it looks the same every single time, right? Like, and there's not a huge frame of reference for how high we're going. It could have been over at the like 3K top or 4K top and done a double bubble similar to 2017, and that would have made sense. So I like
equivalent of where we are right now, basically relative to 2017.
Yeah, perhaps.
Yeah.
So I think it's like always very reasonable to consider those things, and like people that advocate for like the lack of thinking, like just be like, no, it's not. It's like it's just like only going to go up. They say up only and stuff. Who say shit like that? But like those, I think that's like quite bad. Like I think people should always be considering, if you're actively trading these things or trying to, always be considering what is the probability chance that it's over. And yeah, like when we got to, I think there was a dump at 10K or 14K or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, right, I'm selling 5, 10, 7% off all-time high, and I'm going to rebuy all-time high breakout. And I did that. I sold a little bit too early and then rebought 5 or 10% higher, because my logic was, if this nuke is the one, if it's over, then I want to sell as close to the top as possible. And if it's not over, I miss 10, 15% upside, worst case scenario. And at this point in the cycle, that's very reasonable for me to do that. So I did that, and I think that's like totally fine to do. If you do it on every single dip, eventually you've just missed out on massive upside. So you only do it when you start to feel like, or at least I only do it when I start to feel anxious or something. When we hit the actual top around 20K, I was already selling beforehand. I was like, is any minute now, this chart looks disgusting. And I basically got rid of everything before the top. And then the drawdown was so much larger than the previous drawdowns, I think. I don't remember. But it was like over 50% or around 50% or something. Yeah. Did it go to like 10K or 11K? I don't remember.
There was it was pretty quick all the way from like 20K to about 5,900. Like it went sub 6K quite quickly, but sub 10K really, really quick.
The first nuke was sub 10K, bounced to 16.
Then from 16 to like 5.9.
Yeah, I was in the car with my dad going somewhere, and I rebought everything around 11 or 12 or something. I thought maybe I'd done it too high, and it stopped just below 10, I think. And then I was full doomer. I think I tweeted it's going to 16K and then going to 8 or 6 or something, and it went to 17 and then went to 6.
Yeah.
But I think deploying that same strategy would have been fine, like trying to sell 15% below the all-time high and buying a breakout would have been fine. But then like people were doing like, oh, it's 33K by July, don't worry, it's just a dip, continuation type messages. And I didn't really believe in those so much, because the chart would have just looked weird. But like the chart looks weird now. I'm in uncharted territory as per my like mental model for the market now because of Bitcoin chart looking so weird. So people have different systems. They have different like ways of thinking about stuff. And I think a lot of people's approaches to markets are just comfort tools that allow them to stomach it, because it's not about so much being smart. It's about having like the grit to like sit through those drawdowns when you still think you're right, and hold on to stuff when you're like, you have more in your balance than you thought you ever would. So I think having those models for yourself is useful. Other people having models and identifying what their models are is useful. But no one's always going to be right. Like there's no way that someone's just like, like has the perfect model that's always right. It doesn't make sense.
You mentioned Supercycle potentially being max pain. In your probability analysis of where we are now, do you think that that's a multi-year cycle, or even Supercycle, more linear effects on institutional environment?
Sorry, someone in the chat says this has to be pre-recorded. Nelson Wanger. I tried to read out a comment to prove it wasn't. Unless that's part of the plan. Shit.
There you go, Nelson. Yeah, where do you fit the Supercycle into your probability analysis versus, it's just like all the same, and maybe we get another pump, maybe we don't, but it's just a cycle like the rest?
I think this is a little bit similar to what we were just kind of talking about, right? And like maybe I explained it poorly, but like my mental model relies a lot on looking at what happened in the past, either in Bitcoin or in other markets or whatever. So naturally, I'm skeptical of a crypto
concept
supercycle because I haven't seen a crypto supercycle in the past. And then you can look at some actual supercycles, right? So you can look at gold, or you can look at Amazon or Apple. So Apple annual chart the other day, and the last like 12 years were just green. It's like just up only for 12 years. And like think about it, some people got liquidated in those. Some people's longs got liquidated in those. You zoom out to like this 10-year chart, it's just like big green bars, and you got liquidated on a long. How embarrassing is that? But I think the idea of the supercycle is, as it was described by Sue in the January episode we did with him, is probably right. In that if crypto does become integrated into society, becomes the financial backbone of society, Bitcoin becomes the like primary displacer of gold or a vacuum for store of value from other things, then in that scenario, a supercycle is the only thing that really makes sense, right? Because it's like Apple, Amazon, gold. It's just it's working. It's integrated into reality. It's just going to go up for like every annual candle is going to be up for 10, 15 years or whatever. I think the crypto Twitter version of the super cycle is some like delusionary or quixotic idea that has no real premise in reality, that is never going to be a dump. He said the super cycle and like people turned it into this thing that wasn't what he meant. And then like, we're like, well, it clearly isn't the super cycle because we went down a bit. And it's like, all right. I don't think that's what the description of a super cycle was. Whether right now is the right time for the super cycle, I lean probably towards no. So I think it's the right idea, but the wrong time. And I lean more on the side of boom bust now than super cycle, if I'm honest. But only because we seem tangentially integrated into the real world in sort of tertiary ways, or like not there isn't like a big if crypto disappears, right? If all of crypto is erased from existence, how many people's lives practically get impacted? Like Barry Silbert's broke now. Cool. Michael Saylor's no longer a celebrity. Cool. Yeah. Saylor's not a celebrity anymore. What's he doing? He's like doing something else. But like the main thing that happens is people's investments disappear, and if anyone runs a crypto podcast, they're fucked. And then like some like high inflationary countries, El Salvadorians or whatever, get impacted too. But the main impact is probably people that play Axie Infinity as a job, right? Like that's the main practical impact in people's lives. I think like I said, high inflationary regimes, I think they rely on USDT, USDC, and Bitcoin a little bit now. So I think that would be a place where people's lives are impacted. But no one's house loan or day-to-day finances are really impacted. like it's not like a group of people can suddenly not pay their bills because the Solana network's gone down, is it? It's
except for the people watching this today.
yeah, but they're just speculating and investing, right? Like it's not connected to the real world. And I struggle to see how we can have a super cycle until there are signs that that's changing. Like surely the thing that is absorbing loads of the value of the world has to be integrated into reality and society somehow. And Bitcoin and Ethereum NFTs are the only ones that have kind of started, I think. I guess Bitcoin companies buy it, El Salvadorians, and there's like sort of a escape from inflation narrative. So I think that has like actual use in the world. Ethereum does because NFT speculation has kind of gone mainstream. And it's not real, like, doesn't seem like a very legitimate practical use, but it is at least a use that normal people are sometimes doing, collecting and speculating on art. And then really big TradFi companies have started to explore some services for crypto. But I think when that starts to change is when you have the beginnings of the super cycle, and maybe it's just now and we're early, but maybe it needs another boom and bust cycle, or maybe the chains that are going to become the chains underlying the entirety of the world don't yet exist.
Do you think that part of the impact too will just be the health of the regular market? Like we've had 2 years of up only in legacy markets, and if those start to show weakness, or if inflation goes from pump all our bags in anticipation of inflation to now we just have sustained 5 to 7% inflation, and then it starts to become negative on the economy, that drags us down and causes a more typical cycle structure anyway as well.
Yeah, I don't know. That's also like an argument that interferes with the super cycle argument. Is like if traditional markets just end up doing up only and Bitcoin is now way more correlated to traditional markets, you could just get a super cycle by association, right? Like every asset chart in the world is just parabolic right now, apart from Zcash. So like maybe you just get one because the denominator is actually worthless. But I don't know, like if you go on CoinGecko, right, and open it up and look at like the top 10 or top 20 assets, you're like, are we ready for a super cycle with this garbage? It's like, this is embarrassing, dude.
Yeah. That was one of the things that when this bull market started, or when the bottom was in 2019, it still seemed like there was too much cash left in the system from garbage projects. And then what we've seen is they survived. They just didn't pump again. Like those altcoins didn't really pump, but they still have massive treasuries and stuff. And then all the money floods into the new stuff. And now we're just doubling the amount of junk that will exist the next bear market. And I do wonder if, I don't know, will there ever be a time where money kind of flees to quality and like out of the junk, or are we just in a perpetual, junk only bull market?
It sort of does though. In the bear market is when it flees, right? Like people go, this asset actually doesn't make any sense. They dump it. That's why it goes down 99% after it goes down 99%. And in a bull market, people don't really reallocate to those. So they don't make all-time highs against majors. They don't even often make all-time highs against the dollar. So I think that kind of happens just slowly over time. But I don't really know.
So let's back up to out of the market and speculation side of things. I want to talk tech stuff and go back to origination of Ethereum. When did you first get excited about Ethereum? And how did that start to play out in your life?
If I'm totally honest, I say that quite a lot, don't I? I've never spoken as much as I'm speaking right now, constantly, for a very long time. And I've just realized I've got a crutch where I say, if I'm being totally honest, which seems sort of...
Side note, do you know your crutch when other people say things?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. If I'm being totally honest, what else I'm going to be like? Well, you've asked me a question. I might just lie. I might lie about this answer. When did Ethereum click? Day one. I saw day one and I thought, wow, can't wait for DeFi. Then I didn't build it though. I just waited.
Just sitting here, ready to enjoy DeFi.
Yeah. It's because I'm CIA, so they told me if I constantly say that if I'm being honest, other people believe it. If I'm totally honest, I am honest.
Your trust
I'm honest.
up.
Believe me. Yeah, but like, I guess it's because it's like the answer that I think I'm gonna say is like not very cool. So I'm like, if I'm being honest, I'm like dampening it, you know. Anyway, let's get back to the let's get back to the question. I think it was really through the most recent bear market. Because I was kind of bearish on ETH at the very, very, very beginning, because there was loads of hacks. They had the DAO thing, which like where all of the supply was stolen, like 30% of the supply of ETH or something was stolen. And then they did the Ethereum Classic fork, and I was also in these very anti-ETH sub-communities of like people that ran centralized exchanges or like Ethereum just causing so many fucking problems, piece of shit garbage. Like, I'm gonna do this stupid fucking coin. And I bought a small amount at the very beginning, and my commitment was like, all right, I'll just hold it forever in case they ever make it, in case it ever works out. Because like it sounds good, it sounds ambitious. So if they ever make this work, it'll be worth a lot. But then the first things that happened were like, you know, it sucks, there's loads of hacks, DAO fork, all these stupid things happen. And I think I fudded myself out of buying more because my expectation that they'd make it work was low. And then as we got to like 2017, the only real use case on Ethereum was like a felonious GoFundMe where like risk tolerant could like illegally raise money, and like casino goers had a better casino. And I think I made a mistake then because I let what was currently happening efface what the future might look like. So I fudded myself a second time. And like I still held my original ETH because I told myself I would, but there were many opportunities where I could have like gone really ham and pivoted away from holding any Bitcoin, and I didn't. I think it would have worked out similarly actually, but like I was like kind of bearish at the start, and then kind of bearish when people were just using it as like a legal fundraising platform, because the way I try and make investments or allocate is I have an idea of what a thing could be, and I try and see what the upside is, what's the potential like, what does the world look like when this comes into its own and like and flourishes. And so you allocate some capital to it, and then if you see that vision materializing and coming into reality, then you allocate more to it. Like, okay, it's happening, it's working. It's actually now less risky to buy more, even though the price is higher, because this thing I potentially saw that could be in the future actually seems like it's coming into reality. And what was happening with Ethereum was not that. It was like I saw this future, and then like what was actually happening was like everyone was losing their money, or like people were like raising money to do flying cars and shit. And I fudded myself a couple of times, and I didn't buy more, and maybe I should have like had more faith in the vision or whatever. But then after the 2017 run, we had Chainlink, ETHLend, and a lot of those like OG projects start happening. And then you had the 2019, 2020 sort of emergence, and people were building things that if you squinted, you could see a future where it made more sense. Mm-hmm. You're like, okay, right, maybe right now they're not perfect. Maybe right now it looks still sort of like an ICO scam or something. But if you go like, can I see through that? Is there something in here that's like different and novel? You could. And then obviously financial exuberance gets in the way, and people Ponzify these new creations instead of focusing on that which is just a symptom of this like environment, right? Like loads of money to pump into speculative assets, Pokemon cards going to infinity, weird no regulation, blah, blah, blah. You actually focus on the sort of step change in products that were available. You could see that you could actually start to have more of like an on-chain life, like lending was now possible, and like people were building like genuine use case things instead of the entire product being like, you give us money, we give you a token. It was like, you give us money, we give you a token, but you can actually do something. Look, the token is used like this and you earn whatever. So it wasn't until then that it was like, okay, actually this ecosystem is coming into what originally I thought it could come into. That was like the kind of like the all-in signal for me. So it was like through the last bear market, and thankfully, thank God, the ETH BTC price went like literally to the lows. So it didn't even matter if you like didn't buy so early, because ETH BTC went back to zero. So you got to like benefit anyway by being late, which is great for me. But that's when it sort of clicked for me, I guess.
Two elements of that. One, who do you think is responsible for kind of seeing that vision through, getting past just the ICO raises and building the technology in the bear market? And then two, when did you actually see that occur? Like, how did you kind of put aside everything's just going down, this is a bear market, and see like, hey, stuff is actually getting built. Let me go look at that and explore it and figure it out, and then commit to it? Yeah,
so I forgot the first question. I'll answer the second one. Okay. What was the first one?
Who do you think was responsible?
Who's responsible? Yeah, who's responsible? Probably like Chainlink, Aave, Compound, Synthetics, like all those OG DeFi projects that invented like yield farming, or had charts that actually managed to go up.
Weren't doing this, but on the blockchain.
Yeah, because like as those projects build something, it opens up so many more possibilities, because people go, wait, if you can do that, that means you can now do these things. And then, then you get someone with like a real niche experience from some other industry being like, okay, wait, if you can do all these things, I can build the thing I'm really good at in traditional finance on top. I couldn't build that before. So those building blocks add more value to the ecosystem because they enable future building blocks to be created. But I think like a lot of those OG DeFi projects are like responsible for it, I think. And like MetaMask and stuff, like making stuff like really easy to use, I think makes a big difference. I forgot the second question now.
So when did you open your eyes through the bear market and then see that it's actually occurring?
Yeah, so the other like variable that you need to consider, I guess, is like in a super simplistic model, but like in a bear market, big coins go down the least, and in a bull market they go up the least, and small coins go down the most in the bear market and up the most in a bull market. So while you see like the chasm of sort of legitimacy being crossed by an ecosystem, it might also mean the price is wrong. Like if you're really, really, really early, it's just the same as being wrong. Like if you're right, but years early, you could like, that's just wrong. It's the same as being right, but late. It's like, it's still useless. So I watched a lot of it happen through like 2019. Thought the COVID crash and the months following COVID was probably the bottom, because the money printing narrative was about to really come online. Like sort of been the narrative behind Bitcoin for 10 years. And like, it's the like path was like, here's the thesis on why Bitcoin's going to go up. And he was like 12 when he said this to me. It was like 12 or something. I don't know. Maybe he was 15. It's like, that was clear early. But it was like, that narrative was going to be amplified to sort of mainstream, right? Like everyone was going to be talking about that. So I thought that was probably the bottom in the the COVID crash in the months following. And if there's going to be a bull market, I was like, okay, well, now it's like really time to seriously consider where you allocate for the bull market. And DeFi Summer 2020 like paid loads of attention to like, all right, what how's this going to play out, and blah blah blah.
So did you think did you not buy into the bull market starting essentially off the bottom? So, you know, Bitcoin 6K goes to 3K, and then 2019 goes sideways mostly until it pops up and then it goes above 6K. So when we had that crash in March 2020, it was really going back into those depths, but we had already kind of risen off the bottom. Like, where was your mind through all that chop?
Yeah, I think I bought the 2019 lows, and I think I tweeted about it at the time or something. I think I tweeted like the lows are in for now or something like that. And I just thought it was like, you know, one of those multi-year lows, but not like a real low. I think I would, if not for the COVID crash, I would have probably been wrong about that. But it's hard to say. Like, I think you would have got to rebuy close to those levels ish, maybe like $2,000 higher, worst case scenario.
But you didn't feel like you were in some huge rush or like,
I didn't.
The market was imminent. You still felt like there was time to repair.
Yeah, it wasn't like that feeling of like mid to late 2020 where it's like the bull market started, but people don't know yet because it's not broken a new all-time high. Yeah. You know, like 10K to 12K prices where it's like this is it now, but like people don't know yet. Especially like Bitcoin 10K, DeFi Summer was winding down, and that was probably the most bullish I've ever been, most convicted I was ever been. And the chart, by the way, looked like crap for a minute. You know, it's like made you kind of think, oh no, it's just another trap. There was still a lot of that belief at the time, and then, you know, that was when Bitcoin ran up 3x and 3 months, something like that. That's why that's why I think de-risking and like buying the lows back is so worth it, because like over holding, for me personally, I know that loads of people can't do this, but like when you buy those lows, you don't need to think you're buying the multi-generational bottom. You just need to think it's a good price for the next year or two. Mm-hmm. You'll be like, oh, well, even if Bitcoin is actually dying now, it's like the 10-20% scenario where it's actually going to go zero. I'll be able to sell higher than this because people will believe in like at least one last hurrah that might fail. So I'll definitely be able to sell higher than this. It makes it just so easy. And then when the chart starts looking good on the way up, you're like, oh, cool, I don't need to do anything. I think I'm banging on a bit like that.
In terms of ETH feeling sticky to you and having conviction in it, like, how did you get involved in Lido and you know, thinking about Ethereum 2.0 and scaling and that kind of stuff? And that was, I mean, all of that involvement started before like DeFi Summer, right?
Yeah, I was briefly CEO of a company called P2P.org, which is a proof of stake validator company. And like, honestly, like, I feel like I'm stealing valor by being referenced as like a Lido co-founder or anything, because like Konstantin and Vasily entirely the like brains of the entire operation. Like, I'm like the sprinkle on top or some shit. Like, you know, like Vasily is like one of the best DeFi developers, totally understands everything, like both like the economic and the development side. Really, really, really good opinions. Like one of the only people I would like sort of blind follow into stuff. And Konstantin's just a total beast. Like, you know, we've done an episode with him, you met him and spoke to him, and called Lomashok, if people are watching that don't know just the name Konstantin. Like, just like total beast. And like Konstantin really saw this is going to happen. Here's like how you win, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I was CEO of P2P.org. Vasily was CTO. Don't know what Konstantin's role was. Chairman? Who knows? Konstantin is CEO of P2P.org now, after I left. And and we like worked together in 2020 from like summer-ish to build Lido for when the Beacon chain launched in December of 2020. But like, yeah, I mean, like, if you want to do, like, you should have Vasilian to ask him. Like, he's going to tell you why he came up with it. I can tell you, me and Constantine had like a really big argument about it because he really, really, really wanted to call Lido D-Pool, which was short for decentralized pool. And I said, if you call it D-Pool, no one is ever going to use this product. That is the most lame possible thing you could call D-Pool. Come on. That's like, and then like, so BitClout did decentralized social, DSO. It's like, no, don't call it D.
Having had naming talks with you, I'm just going to defer that your opinion is going to be better than most of the people you're debating. That's why this is not called Token Talk or whatever it was.
Token Talk, so you just call it Token Talk. Yeah, so like it's like my most proud contribution to Lido is that we actually managed to get it to be called Lido because everyone apart from me was like really, really, really against it. And then I managed to convince them for a while that it should be called Onsen. And then like the next day, Sushi announced they were launching a product called Onsen. I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. Yeah, so I met Constantine and worked on P2P.org and then Lido with him and the team, but like I didn't do it for very long, and yeah, like I don't want to steal valor because the big brains behind it are Constantine and Vasily and a bunch of the other contributors, Alex, and a bunch of the other core teams like Chorus One have built a lot now. Paradigm have been very helpful, blah blah blah.
But y'all did take the idea of proof of stake blockchains were a real thing. ETH actually moving to proof of stake was a real thing, and then like setting up for how to provide tooling for that. So I guess I assume people know, but like this gives people the capacity to kind of have liquidity while also staking coins, and primarily with Ethereum, but also with other blockchains as well. So by that point, you had to have learned not only do I think this is going to stick around, but like, here's how it's going to move forward. Here's some of the technical thoughts that I have about it. Like, did you do some kind of deep dive on the technology around Ethereum and learn things, or did you just get to know people that were gigabrains and strap on, or what?
So the thing that I was convinced by is that when proof of stake blockchains were created for the first time, like there was no concept of DeFi, right? Didn't exist because they were like Peercoin and stuff was proof of stake, I think, if I remember correctly. And even when Ethereum had its like move to proof of stake roadmap plan, they didn't have a concept of DeFi either. Now, when you have a proof of stake protocol, you can lock up your coins or your tokens or whatever people call them nowadays. You can lock them up in order to be rewarded for securing the network. All right. So you get paid some inflation rate, like a staking reward, in exchange for locking up that capital and then doing some work, or someone doing some work on your behalf. Now, in DeFi, you can lock up your money and get a yield, and it's used in collateral, used as collateral or something, blah, 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 blah. But both things will compete with each other on basically what is the yield, right? So like, should I stake my Ethereum, or should I put my Ethereum into Aave or Compound or Ruglend or like whatever, like whatever exists, where should I put it? And people are quite rational, especially in crypto. People are here to make money. So they might just put it in the one that offers them a decent risk-adjusted APY, right? So if staking offers you 8% or 10% or whatever, and Ruglend offers you 25%, then a lot of people might just put it in 25% until the Ethereum network is so insecure that Ruglend's security is threatened, and then some people will have to stake because otherwise their Ethereum, the price of Ethereum will go down because it's not secure as a network anymore. So this like competitive equilibria between staking and DeFi collateral was when Lido like made a lot of sense to me, because you could stake and then use that sort of that staking token as your collateral the same way you would use Ethereum. Like staked Ethereum is just a better version of Ethereum, except you can't pay gas, because you can do everything else you can do with Ethereum with staked Ethereum, except you also earn a yield on it. It's like wrapped, ready for DeFi. So it's like, maybe it's a better version of wrapped ETH is a better way to think about it. But that's when it made a lot of sense to me. It's like a simple product that could be the new base currency on Ethereum. So the risk-free rate, risk-free yield or whatever is the bottom brick of DeFi. I like simple stuff. I'm a simple person. But I would like to take the time and say, look, I have owned a lot of this coin and got it for a price virtually close to zero. And by talking about it, I'm just telling you my opinion and shit. So I don't want to get zacked.
Disclosures.
That is my disclosure. It's a financial disclosure.
I just find it interesting because I don't know. There was a process, right, for how proof of stake worked in my brain. For me, the entry point to that was like master nodes and crap, and a long time ago, and most of those were scams or like ways to get people to lock up their money, so that when the earliest people that locked up their money, there's unlocks, they're able to dump on all the people that locked late. But there was not necessarily, it wasn't clear to me for sure that like proof of stake could be a secure model for a blockchain, you know. And then there's a lot of debate about that within the ecosystem as well. But not only did y'all presumably think that, you also thought there was a good chance that that was actually going to make it through in terms of ETH's roadmap.
Yeah, so like Constantine ran a fund, which was not a fund, it was a research team called Cyberfund in 2014. What Cyberfund did was they looked at all the different assets, looked at which were like proof of work, proof of stake, and then monitored the trends, like which assets were getting created, which ones were doing well, blah, 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 blah. And in 2017, 2018 kind of onwards, there wasn't really new proof of work stuff being made. And proof of stake was attracting a lot of capital, a lot of attention. And for smart contract networks, maybe it's less important. Like maybe Bitcoin is the thing that needs, you know, the powerhouse of proof of work. I don't know. I find these debates like confusing because like I can only observe what's happening, and me taking an opinion on like whether proof of stake is good, whether proof of work is good, doesn't really inform me in any actionable way outside of me maybe radicalizing or tribalizing myself. So instead I've just got to observe what is happening and observe like the variables that are at play. Clearly the environment stuff is important to some people. Yes, the Bitcoin environment stuff is like often like twisted and distorted to be worse than it is. But at the same time, it does use a lot of energy. Norway's kicked it off the clean energy supplies because it's using all the clean energy or something, so no one else has got any left or something like that. And like clearly these things matter to people. I'm not going to take an opinion on them because I'm just trying to observe and take advantage of what's happening. I'm not trying to become some sort of philosophical like authority in the proof of whatever world.
I just feel like this is the first cycle, I guess, where several chains are using proof of stake and doing it with like quite a lot at risk, and there's not really been any proof that I could see where it was like attacked or subpar in securing networks or anything. And that seems more obvious now that, okay, Ethereum has this pathway, this allowance to go to proof of stake and be fine securing a however many billions of dollars of a network value. And that just wasn't necessarily as clear before. There's more skepticism about whether or not proof of stake could get by and be sufficient from a security perspective. I'd like to dig into what do you think that transition looks like? I mean, it's been a meme for years, like ETH 2.0 soon. And then it's, I think it was first going to be launched in 2019 or something. And now it's 2022 or whatever. that is the plan. How do you think it's going to roll out? What do you think are the risks, and what outcomes do you think we'll see from it?
Not a good authority to ask, I don't think, but like, I think it'll probably happen Q2, Q3 of next year. I think people are expecting Q1, Q2. I think it'll be later. If it's this time next year and not rolled out, I won't be surprised. I think that would be like a very possible outcome. I think ETH people will start to get a bit touchy about it at that point. If we're like from halfway through next year onwards, I guess. But like, honestly, don't really know. Like the beacon chain's been live for a while. So like ETH2 is kind of like exists. You can like, you can get staking rewards and shit on it. You just can't do anything with it yet. Transactions not enabled. And obviously there is the event that's coming is the merge where ETH1 and ETH2 just become the same thing. Like ETH2 becomes Ethereum. Mm-hmm. So like, I don't really know. I think it'll be a weird period where I think people think the merge is really bullish for a while because staking rewards happening, and then people go, wait, but people have been staking for 2-3 years and had all these coins locked up for many years. So
they're unlocking.
How much is it? $35 billion on the beacon chain or something?
Yeah, it's a lot.
Like,
I don't really
So
understand.
it's like $35 billion currently will become unlocked.
I'm confused.
But it's not.
I'm confused why someone would put them there.
Well, if you stake with Lido, you can actually get the money back.
Yeah.
And like Lido has like 20% market share or something. I think a bunch of it is really long-term holders being like, well, I get risk-free Ethereum basically. And I think a lot of it is like tech hobbyists and maybe altruistic stakers or whatever, just try to get ETH onto the beacon chain. But yeah, like, so yeah, it'll be bullish. Oh, the merge is happening. It's like, the issuance is going to drop even more, and then the issuance goes to long-term holders, blah, blah, blah. But then $35 billion, $40 billion unlocked when transactions enable, and transactions are not enabled straight away. So like, it's not at the same time, but I think there'll be a narrative shift there around that time.
How much further do you think we have to go in the sense of like, layer one's expensive, Ethereum's impossible to participate on, and this network like can't ever be accessible to the average Joe? You think that's just a forever thing for Ethereum, or is there a time where L1 can be available to real people, or will L2 be seamless enough to be a primary experience and be Ethereum, even though it's not L1?
Yeah, I think the Ethereum core, how do I word this? The wider Ethereum community's attitude to scaling, I think, is quite bad, right? Like people don't even acknowledge that it's a problem. Like, how is this not the biggest issue in the world? Like, like, how are they not horrified by this? Like, it's atrociously bad at the moment. And they're just like, oh, don't worry, like we'll do optimistic rollups, and then optimistic rollups come online and they're like okay for like smaller like participants, but there's not really good like backwards bridges for really large amounts. Like if you want to get 100,000 ETH off Arbitrum, there's not someone with 100,000 ETH waiting to go into Arbitrum at the same time. So like getting that pairing is like kind of hard. So then you got to wait this like 7-day or whatever wait period. Maybe that changes when they launch their own native token. So like there is that like you can be early again type feeling on these L2s. But like optimistic rollups were potentially just a little bit of a disappointment so far. Like it definitely didn't feel like they banged as much as all the alt layer ones did. And now that instead of being like, holy shit, that's a problem, it's like, well, we'll just have ZK rollups. They're not yet EVM compatible, and that's actually incredibly difficult. But we've got some teams working on them. Like that's like, that's it.
Yeah, there's a lack of urgency for.
And I think it's because urgency would be admitting there's a problem and then giving your enemies sort of the upper hand and be like, look, even they know there's a problem, they're fucked. So I honestly don't really know. But I'm equally skeptical in the alt layer ones. I mean, the main thing that you will learn through this episode is that I'm basically skeptical of everything, and I have to, unless I believe something, I can just, it's very easy to tear it to pieces. Mm-hmm. I think the fragmented liquidity on ETH layer 2 is like, it sucks, it's really bad. But I think that there's also fragmented liquidity across all the alt layer 1s as well. And I think a lot of the alt layer 1s will fail to sustain ecosystems after they, their incentive programs, reward programs to use the chain run out, or they stop using them, or the treasury that's paying the developers to build novel things, and the novel thing is just a copy paste project most of the time. Those things run out. And, in a bear market, these ecosystems will just run dry, right? Because their ecosystems came online a little bit late, well into a bull market, and are mostly populated by people who are like speculating mid-cycle or whatever. So I don't think their ecosystems are necessarily as sticky as the ETH ecosystem is, where, as you said, there's $40 billion staked that's locked till
ETH 2 put on.
till Vitalik figures it out, right? And they staked it, and the timeline was like, we're not sure. It's like, we don't know. That's when stake it now. We don't know when you'll be able to get it back. So I think there is a lot more sticky capital there, because it's easier to expect that in the future Ethereum's still around, given it's been around for a little while. The same way you can imagine Bitcoin's around for ages. Whereas with the alt layer 1s, like, you can flip a coin on some of them, whether it'll be a thing next cycle. And yeah, there'll be more than there was from the last cycle that make it through. But I think it'll be 5% of them max. And even then, I think they'll struggle a little bit. So I'm skeptical of both, honestly. Increasingly, I've started to wonder if the alt layer 1 game is just a constant capital rotation into the new one. Like, what's to say in the next 3 years someone doesn't found, Ledger chain, Brian chain, where the technology is even better and the transactions per second is even better, or it's built with ZK rollup technology as the roadmap from day one, rather than pivoting to ZK rollups when the technology becomes available. And if we're being honest with ourselves, one of the main primary use cases of these layer 1s is just to be early as a service, right? Like, you get to be early again. If you're early, you make money. So there will always be people willing to fund those alternative layer 1s. And maybe there's just forever a capital rotation into the next best one. And that could just be the smart contract ecosystem forever. So
That's
I don't know.
Take.
Is it a bullish take? You get to be early every year.
As long as you're early and get that part right. Seems like there's a bit of a dilemma too. You're talking about the stickiness. So on one side, and I don't know if you listened to it, like Sue and Hasu had a big debate about this on Uncommon Core. Let's take Solana, but you could take other ecosystems as well, where they're often their own language developer ecosystem. You're not copy pasting, but you're redeveloping the same stuff. There's a certain type of potential stickiness if they achieve kind of this enough momentum going into a bear market or a lack of speculation that it continues to, build and thrive, and is able to come out the other side strong. And then on the other side of things, where it's EVM based, so Avalanche, I think this is also where like Phantom and some of those types of things exist. They're EVM, so they have the stickiness of being the same code base as what the way you build things on Ethereum, but they could lack in the sense that if Ethereum itself scales better, then it makes them quite unnecessary, we would think. So it's a different type of risk factor. And I wonder if you think, like, if you had to bet on one pathway, is it kind of this EVM compatibility version or the do your own thing and kind of define yourself version? Which do you think has the greater potential to make it out the other side?
If I have to guess, I think the EVM compatible has the most fleeting, like unsticky capital, because if you take the scenario I just described where like you can be early as a service with a new layer one, if it's EVM compatible, it can attract a bunch of liquidity very quickly because people can use their MetaMask and developers can just copy paste the project, and copy paste project developers are less incentivized to stick around for a long time, right? Like it wasn't their idea. Maybe like their main motivation was just personal wealth or something. It doesn't necessarily solve a problem so much as that it's like covering a problem on a new ecosystem in case a new ecosystem does well. So it like kind of solves a problem, but it's like, yeah, like those non-original founder projects I become increasingly skeptical of, unless the founder then independently like performs as like a total G and they're clearly very smart. But like a lot of crypto is bet on teams, right? Like you bet on teams, you bet on people that are trying to like are clearly very smart and are going to execute well. Like copy paste projects, the signal is who knows? Like who knows how good this developer is? They've successfully copied and pasted, and then from there it's up to them to prove like are they going to be able to innovate? Are they going to be able to build good stuff? Are they going to, will they be able to pivot as things change in the future? Whereas original developers, they had some vision that they executed on well, and it became a reality. So there is also already some kind of proof of them doing well. So I think the EVM ecosystems, I think they're much less sticky, whereas the things that have been developed novelly probably going to be a little bit stronger. But honestly, I'm only answering because you asked the question. Like I would not really bet on it either way.
Yeah, I mean, I think of like Trader Joe is one of my favorites because obviously tons of momentum, it even unseated like the #1 place to trade on Avalanche pretty quickly. But you go look at it and it's like, it says Master Chef type verbiage in the back, and we go look at the smart contracts because it's copy pasted without even like renaming inside the smart contracts. It's just like the primary labels have a different name, but the actual contracts themselves, they didn't bother. That's not to say though that it can't kind of find its own direction. They can't like take a different path in terms of what do they do now. I've seen that in open source software where, one piece of open source e-commerce software forks another piece of open source e-commerce software, but then it like defines itself from there. It just uses it as like the baseline framework because it was a decent baseline framework to start from.
Yeah. So there's asymmetric risk with the fork projects, right? Because when you have Uniswap, for example, maybe they stole it from Bancor. I don't know the law, but there's like a Uniswap or Bancor or something. They're clearly a smart, innovative team that have built something and executed well. And then if someone copy paste that onto Avalanche or onto Phantom or onto one of these alternative layer ones, EVM layer ones, if they copy paste it, the valuation model for that on one hand makes sense, right? If it captures a bunch of market share and is used a lot, then it should have a valuation. You can look at Uniswap, that valuation relative to ETH. We can maybe price Trader Joe or whatever relative to Avalanche based on that. But at the same time, the second valuation model based on the team is like, maybe it's just a bunch of people that don't know what they're doing operating a spaceship, right? In the future, there's actually a different risk model there because the second team, I'm not saying Trader, I don't know anything about the team. They may be really good, but that team, if they're not as good as the Uniswap team, they don't really understand it. Like, do they just keep copy pasting Uniswap code forever? Or like, You know what I mean? So I think a lot of those copy paste projects can look very overvalued because they're valued relative to their original parents. You have no real idea of if the team can justify such a valuation and maintain such a valuation for the future. And in some cases they can, right? So you see this a lot where there's a copy paste project, but the person who copy pasted it is a fucking genius. And then they like change a few things and now it's like way, way, way better. Yeah. Right. And it's like, holy shit, now that's actually way, way, way better than the Ethereum version. Like the Avalanche version is like the coolest possible version of this because they saw something that was different. I took a risk or, just experimented differently. So that's interesting too. But like, I think it's important to identify what scenario you're in rather than just like, oh, it's the first DEX, it's the first people that copy pasted it onto this other chain is the winning one. I don't think that makes sense to me.
So how, when you're looking at this stuff and, I know you're a speculator and you're also paying attention to the fundamentals, the technology, the momentum, the mimetic effects, like you try to combine all this to figure out how am I going to make money off of it. How do you avoid potential failures or blindness from like maximalism? If you say, okay, I believe these things in the ETH landscape, they're like absolute geniuses that wrote a lot of this stuff. And, like, how do you avoid being blinded by that to say, then it's always the best place where something occurs versus like finding potential innovation, whether it's on, Solana or Ledger Chain or whichever one it's going to be on.
Yeah. I think there's a few interesting topics in there, to be honest. Because I think maximalism itself is kind of a loaded term, but we'll talk about that afterwards, and I'll just answer your question because I am aware that I just talk sometimes and don't answer your question, go somewhere else with it.
That's fine. You're a natural politician then.
I think figuring out like the metagame of the market is like the most important possible thing that you can do, right? And like you'll feel the pain of this, right? Because you figured out a metagame without figuring out it was the metagame. I think you and Messi, you like bought a bunch of these coins at the start of the year that all went to infinity, but then you didn't realize the metagame was changing. And then they all went back down to your entry point. And like you left so much on the table.
I didn't ride it all the way back to the entry, but I probably missed like 5xing my like tradable portfolio purely by not rotating when it was obviously the time to like start rotating. And because everything else, the next batch of things was starting to go, you're not only missing those, you're drawing down instead. Like, and that's horrible.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, your bag's not going down, but everyone else is going up. And like Twitter curates you the winners like on your feed, right? Because it's like what gets engagement, and it's the winners. So you're like, no, everyone's winning but me. But like figuring out the metagame is the most important possible thing you can do if you're trying to make money in crypto. The way you don't figure out the metagame, is go watch crypto YouTubers. Like they don't know the metagame. They just tell you whatever they think is cool or whatever they're being paid for, or whatever they've invested in, they got a good valuation for. You should just imagine they're promoting their own bags, even if they're not. Like sometimes they might be, sometimes they might not be, but they're good at content marketing. They're not good at crypto. Figuring out the metagame is really hard because it requires constantly being on your toes, right? So in 2013, after Quark, there was a bunch of these multi-hashing algorithm coins. Then there was Dogecoin. After Dogecoin, there was a mimetic bubble in Kitty coin, which started a trend of low Satoshi coins. So if you had a coin that was one Satoshi, a price floor was in it, kind of. The low Satoshi coins like Lotto coin, that was the metagame. Then the metagame switched to API, like what's getting added to Crypto, because there was not really many bullish narratives. It was just where are people playing. If you fast forward through time, you end up in ICO metagame era, right, where you're like trying to buy the pre-sale before the main sale, and all that stuff that happened in 2017. If you go 2020, metagame was like a bunch of farming, like DeFi farming, yield farms, blah, 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 blah. At the start of this year, you had Bitcoin the Bitcoin trade going through to the ETH trade and the DeFi sort of resurgence. DeFi is like complacency top against majors. Then you had, I think, like the alt layer 1 chain trade and then the shitcoins, or maybe the other way around. I don't remember. And then you had the big Doge move, and then the following dog coins like Sheeb and all those started doing well. Then you had another NFT wave. And then you had the beginning of Solana season, or maybe Ethereum majors.
It was like like Solana and AVAX season, kind of on the tail end of that. Yeah. Yeah. So Solana, and then that rotated through to AVAX, and now it's kind of the Luna. The Luna trade has been doing pretty well, but within that there was like a metagame all the time, and the best way to describe it is the Avalanche one, right? Because it was so clear and so obvious, and even I could figure it out.
and so much of CT didn't, because they were just saying the whole time like, oh, you're going to get dumped on by 3 arrows or something. Like, look, they've just done a fundraising round for Avalanche. They got in at $1. They're just going to dump it on us. It's like, yeah, but they're locked for 4 years. Like, they've got to shill it for 4 years. Yeah. They got to bid it for 4 years so that when it goes to zero, they're still up after 4 years or something. But like, that metagame was so easy because it's like, okay, it's the Ethereum ecosystem, it's ohm forks, dexes, stable coins, blah, 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 on Avalanche. That's it. That's the whole metagame. That's all it was. And it was so easy. You just buy those things and hold them. People come across the bridge, they join this ecosystem, and then people will spin out more and more strange things and try different things, and then eventually all the metagames end with rugs, so you get like Snow Dog rugged or whatever. And then the metagame changes again. So figuring out what that metagame is the most important thing. Now, I've rambled quite a lot, but there is a point to this, because I'm coming back to your original question, which is like, how do you avoid maximalism? Like, accept these trades, even if you think Ethereum or Bitcoin or whatever is the only valuable thing in the space and everything else is just a scam or whatever. And it's to say, well, what is the metagame right now? And what do other people that are trying to make money, what are they going to do? Like, what are the smart ones doing now? Where is the opportunity? And where over the following weeks or months are people that want to make money going to join in? Where are they going to go? What are the things that are going to be looking good? And what is the time frame on something like that? So a lot of the Avalanche, like Trader Joe, I got into very early, around the time just before 3 Hours announced they'd done a fundraising round for it. Because sometimes Suzu messages me and he says, what do you think of this? And it's like a project, and like 9 times out of 10 it's because he's considering doing a fundraising round, but I never know if he is. So I was like, he said that to me, and I was like, I know I'm in a good coin because that means he's doing the fundraising round. But if you know that the time frame on this position is shorter than some of your like real value long-term time horizon things, it doesn't matter so much about the maximalism, right? You just think it's going to go up over a short amount of time. I'm going to be able to play this narrative. I figured out the meta game, and I can buy it and sell it when I think the meta game's ending, or this particular thing's getting to a point where I'm not comfortable holding it anymore, or sell it to an investor.
Yeah. How do you look at that now? Like, if you were to give the chat your alpha, your magic 8 ball of what's next in the meta game, the chat has been talking makes me a little nervous that the chat's saying words that match up with my thinking. Probably means it's not. But like the multi-chain idea, like the tooling for multi-chain or metaverse-driven stuff seems to be where the chat thinks like that metagame is moving. Do you agree with that? Do you think it's something that we're not talking about yet?
So the thing is, like, there is no crystal ball, right? Well, I've got a crystal ball right here. There is one.
That one.
And I do consult that sometimes, and we can ask it what I think the answer is.
It normally just rests on your radiator.
Okay, we've made a request to the heavens, and we'll see. But like, there is no crystal ball, and like the reality is, you can guess and you can say, I think this is a good narrative for these reasons, right? Like you saw the Solana ecosystem pop off. The Solana ecosystem has a very public, multi-billion-dollar bidder, Sam and Sam, you know, like they have these big supporters, are very incentivized to make the ecosystem like work, bring projects into the ecosystem, blah, 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 blah. And that did quite well. Now, there is another layer one that has a very public, multi-billion-dollar bidder. It's not Sam, it's Sue and Kyle. But it's also EVM compatible. And they will be incentivized, and developers, the chain, the VCs will be incentivized to build out an ecosystem there too. And if that manages to catch on, then that's probably a good trade. You could say that for Nia, Harmony, Secret, like all these alt layer ones I've never even touched in my life.
Billionaires behind them.
Yeah, like does the narrative work out for them, and why is it going to be this one? Like, why was it Avalanche but not Nia? And it's probably because you had like 3 arrows and these incentivization programs both to users and to developers. But tons of reasons, sometimes narrative catches on with one thing. So you can guess if you want and say these narratives would make sense, so I'm going to allocate for the narratives. If you really want to do that, I think that's totally reasonable as an approach. An alternative thing that you can do, which I much prefer, is just look at what's happening. Like, instead of guessing, which I tried to do a lot in the earlier days when I was like sort of, I guess more arrogant and like believed this idea that like I was going to outsmart everybody. Like, I'm going to be like 3 steps ahead of everyone by like, doing this, this, and this. Instead, you can just kind of go, what's happening? Okay, so people are bridging to Avalanche and they seem to like the experience. Maybe Avalanche is getting some like product market fit with users, and they've decks on there that people seem to like, and yeah, 3 hours are probably going to keep bidding it, and there's this incentivization program coming out. Okay, I'll allocate there in case that plays out as a narrative, because I think it might be doing that now. Some people are, you're seeing that the early suggestions of that could be similar to the Solana ecosystem. And then again, if it seems to be happening more, you can allocate further. You'd be like, okay, well, I bought some, actually is playing out the way I thought it was playing out, so I will now buy more. Again, it's less risky to buy higher because I see, reality playing out in front of me. Like, I bought Avalanche so late compared to everyone else. Like, Sue showed me at like $5. You showed me at like $30. Yeah, Gainsey showed me at like 20. I bought it at like 40 or something. And at the same, when I bought it at 40, I bought like Trader Joe and like all these other like things much, much, much lower. And even though Avalanche only went like 4x or something from my entry, I also managed to like whatever multiple my actual Avalanche balance by participating in this ecosystem. So I was maybe a little bit late on the dollar price, but I was early enough to the ecosystem that it didn't matter. So I think a lot of these narratives are just observing when they start and then being aggressive with it. And I think people FUD themselves out of this because they see one begin and they go, I'm late. Suzu's going to dump on me. Like, I saw Sat start talking about it already. I'm late. So
well, then you probably are.
Yeah, but so I'm not going to buy it because I'm late. Because if someone's tweeted about it already, surely that means I'm late. So they don't buy it. and then they get their confidence up over the next few weeks, and then eventually they do buy it late. But if they just saw this narrative playing out and respectively made a small bet that they could increase over time as then they got more confident in the narrative, then I think you don't need to guess what it's going to be. Like ZK roll-up season has like a big theme around it. Like, oh, that's going to be the next one. A lot of people making this prediction. And it could be, right? Like the amount of people that, do I have any liquids left? I've got cold tea. Gross. The amount of people that seem to think it could be a narrative gives some credence to the idea that it might become one, because people like go like and retweet those things. Like, cool, yeah, I believe that makes sense. But then in practice, you guys like, do the metrics add up when these things go online? Like, are people using them? Are people bridging, or are people just like telling you that ZK rollups are cool so they can sell you their ZK rollup airdrop coins, or like sell you their bags that they bought a year ago? That's me. Like, you know, like, so instead of predicting stuff, I think you either take the approach of like, you make small allocations to stuff that you think is really cool, and wait, or you just watch narratives start to play out and then try to jump on them when it happens, right? Like, you don't need to be in like a year or two early. If I'm happy to be in a year or two early because I'm not trying to move my entire balance around all these ecosystems. Yeah. So I can buy ZK rollups and like, maybe they do nothing, maybe they come online in 10 years, I don't care. But like if you do care, it's probably more efficient, just wait. This seems to be a trend. Join the trend, leave the trend, identify next one, and just wait till you see one. Because sometimes there's nothing. Sometimes the trend is pain.
Yeah. All right, let's take do something we've never done before, because we got more to talk about. Let's take a 60-second break. Go get some water. Cobie,
there's water.
You look like you're like really struggling. So I'm gonna.
I don't want to cough.
I'm gonna roll a rocket ship on the stream, and y'all can enjoy it, and we'll be right back. All right. Thank you. All right. Cobie is still on his break, so I guess I'll just talk to the chat. This is your favorite guest. Good. Cobie can't still hear us. I can't say anything too bad. He's got those sneaky headphones on. I picked up a beer as well. All right, let me turn it back on you. Look at that, it's better that time.
Hello.
Welcome back after those messages from FTX. So what I would like to ask about is, so, you know, there's ZK or metaverse or NFTs or layer ones, things that reasonable people can look at and think like, all right, there might be like some kind of semi-fundamental thing that you can grab onto there. Maybe you're a skeptic. Maybe you're like, all right, I don't think this has got long-term legs, but there's something there. What about when the thing that you see happening, the animal spirits of the market are getting riled up, and it's like oh my God, this is just nonsense, you know, like it's dog coins and stuff. How do you approach the market when it's that way? Can you still take risks? Can you still like be convicted in going into those things, or how do you play them?
Well, do you really think practically there is that much of a difference in absurdity between a dog coin going up and a ninth tier alternative layer one DEX exchange? Got like, is there that much of a difference practically? Like, really? Like, I know that the dog coins are like kind of funny, right? Because they've got a dog on them, which is just like silly, and you know, people are putting their money into them, and it's like, haha, why are you doing that? That doesn't make sense. As an investment thesis, it's got a dog on it. But at the same time, you can equally say, why are you putting your money into like bottom tier percentile alternative layer ones third DEX? You know what I mean? Like, that's also a shit investment maybe. So I don't see them as honestly that different. Like, in crypto, everything's been stupid since the beginning. Like, Bitcoin, very serious, big serious coin. Very, you know, Bitcoin will probably wear a suit these days. But like, after that, there was like stupid coins. Obviously, DOGE was like 2014 or something. I don't remember. There was cat coins. There was like loads of like weird stuff. There was a coin that was pegged to the price of urea or something.
I don't
Piss. It was like everyone called it piss coin, but it was called euro. URO, and it was like the guy that made that coin was like on meth all the time and like had a mental breakdown on stream or something. I don't really remember, but like all of those things were so stupid and like unconvincing. But still was like at some point part of the metagame. It was still the trade, and like you can still see these things playing out as a trade if you just consider that they're all equally ridiculous. Because at the end of the day, Arbitrum's DEX clone that trades like a neon cat coin as the primary volume on the DEX is no more legitimate than the cat coin itself.
Yeah.
Because if the primary use of this DEX is to trade the thing that's completely stupid, then how is the DEX itself not also completely stupid? It would not be used at all if not for the cat coin. So maybe the cat coin is actually more legitimate than the DEX. So I think you just go, actually, nothing makes sense. Like, nothing is like serious and legitimate when you're considering trades. Like, not over the long term, then you need to really think about what is serious. But if you're playing the metagame, it's like, it doesn't really matter if it makes sense, if your time horizon is significantly short. Actually, it making sense and feeling like a real thing is how you can turn your trade into an investment by tricking yourself into going, well, this one is the future. This one is the one. Whereas with the dog coins, most people, I think, know that's not the one. I think actually Dogecoin people really think it is, but like everyone else, they're just playing a game of chicken with each other, trying to hold long enough so that they make enough money and then sell before it crashes. And that's what everyone's kind of doing anyway. So it doesn't matter if your coin's got a dog logo or not.
Let's do Doge for a second. I feel like we have to pay some homage to Doge for like how insane it was this year, because it's nothing like Doge has been before. And Doge has this history since 2014 of having these 5 to maybe 10x. Like, it was always 10 to 20 sats to 100, 150 sats was kind of the trade. And this year it just went next level. And I feel like it was probably one of the greatest consensus trades. Like, yes, 2021, there will be a Doge pump. So just buy it while it's cheap, sell it, you know, above 80 sats somewhere. And like, there you go. There's your 4X. And then what we saw is, I mean, and if you go back and look at the chart, all of the 2014 to 2020 moves on Doge now look flat, because Doge went to like Do you remember what it went to? Like 1,400 sats, something like that. I mean, it just.
I don't remember in sats. It was like 77 cents or something.
Yeah. So in the night of SNL, it topped, which is also, again, the most obvious top is like Elon goes on SNL, says Doge to the moon, and is never higher ever again. Was there any chance in your mindset of the way you think about markets to have predicted the degree that it went? And then also, like, how do you even plan for it? Like, do you just appreciate the chips you were able to take off the table and whatever else was left, what you left on the trade, that's fine? Or how do you approach it?
So I think this is quite interesting conceptually because it shows you product market fit of a narrative, right? So it says when there's a bull market that happens, often people are like, there's something in the world that makes them think Dogecoin is enough of like a common joke that it will go up. And obviously when Dogecoin came out, the Doge meme was like newish, I guess. So it did really well then. And then cyclically it had those pumps, and then those pumps become part of the reason why it can have another one, because everyone looks into the past and goes, well, Doge will definitely have another pump. But also there's a product market fit in that people like the narrative. So new participants will hear the narrative and behave in the same way to previous participants, right? So like when a bull market comes and you say some combination of words to someone who is in a point in their life where they have money available, some percentage of those people will buy Dogecoin after those words are said to them. It's like just like some function, like some human function. You go, you can, maybe it's like 3 in 100, who knows? But the previous Dogecoin pumps, the narrative was spread within the community and didn't really break out of the community. So that it hits critical mass, then it goes down. Yeah. And then it happens again the next time. It happens again the next time. This time around, you already know that Dogecoin has a conversion of 3% or whatever. If you tell 100 people, I'm making this up, but you tell 100 people about this trade, 3 of them will take it, and it pumps every time. Plus you have the historic knowledge of seeing it happen on the chart, so they can be convinced both by like the DOGE and the history or whatever. But the main thing that was different this time is that the narrative gets shared so much wider than the previous groups. And it turns out that those new groups of people that the narrative reached have a similar conversion rate to taking the trade, maybe even a larger conversion rate to taking the trade, because the person they were told by was more of an authority figure. And if you look throughout history, this happens quite a lot, right? So at the moment, you have a large vaccine skeptical population. It's like one of the biggest narratives of this year, I think. Mm-hmm. If you go back through history, you also had vaccine skeptical populations. However, the message of a vaccine was not propelled on everyone at the same time or simultaneously. It was just like, people having kids or whatever. But there was clear product market fit between the narrative of vaccines like incredibly bad and like people being presented with the idea of a vaccine. So you could say that the rejection of the vaccine in society was entirely predictable because there's already product market fit between the narrative and the suggestion of a vaccine. And I think it's the same for a lot of things. Like it's similar for Bitcoin, similar for flat Earth and stuff like that. Like it's not a surprise that certain these groups sustain themselves in similar sizes. And if the narrative is propelled to loads of people all at once, then the conversion rate happens all at once. And then these communities grow and the K factor of that goes up because they're talking to each other quite a lot. So I don't think it's that surprising, but obviously this is easy to say in hindsight. I lost money every time I traded Dogecoin until this year. Every time I tried it in the past, I fucked it up. Yeah, and then BitLord told us and I bought and it was like 1 cent or something. I made money on that. I sold it like 7 cents and I just never cared about it again. I still don't care. But I think if I didn't have that always lose money sort of crutch or hang up, I would have made more money on Doge this time around, because I think if you analyze it unemotionally and without bias, it was actually probably a very easy trade. It was like, Elon is going to go really hard and continue to shill this, in which case you'll convert tons and tons of people, or he won't, and you have the downside of a bull market, which is probably not that much.
That one was classic for me, where it was like simultaneously correct, even in timing, and prepared for it, and still managed to not really make anything on it. Like I took profits from a couple of margin trades. It was like, I'm going to put the margin profits in Doge and just let it sit there until it goes to 80 or 100 sats. And then for some reason I got either bored or impatient, sold it. And my plan was to rebuy it January 1st, but I was traveling January 1st. January 1st, Doge went up like 50%. And I was like, oh, I missed it. It was like, didn't even get to 1 cent yet, and it was moronic. And then Bitlord came on the first. Well, that was the first episode, right? The unofficial first episode.
Yeah.
And he's like, everybody in the world's gonna buy Doge, don't you see? And then that's exactly what happened, and it went on to go to 74 cents.
But that's kind of what we were talking about earlier, right? Like, there is a narrative that is starting, and people see it up a certain amount and they go, I'm late.
Yeah, that's exactly what
instead of going, there's a narrative forming. If this narrative catches on, what is the potential upside? I will allocate a small amount that matches my confidence that this will continue. And then as the narrative plays out, either scale in or scale down based on like basically how you feel about the risk of it. But I think it's so easy to do, right? Because you go, oh, it's not really worth the risk. There's a million things I could buy right now. And I think people really trick themselves into trying to guess what the next one will be, rather than just like following the obvious ones that like the market or something is just telling you, it's me. And you're like, yeah, I see that it's you, but I'm concerned that I'm a little bit late. So I'm going to just go into the abyss and like just try and grab the next thing and hope that like I get it right.
And I think, yeah, and especially in that scenario where you got Elon Musk on your side, like bigger than any single individual, honestly, probably the cumulative effect of all combined individuals in crypto. And it was a failure to recognize that potential for the K factor, like the escape velocity of the message itself capturing for people. And it just did to a degree that was unbelievable. That being said, it goes to where I went. Is it now the type of thing where you just couldn't possibly be bothered? Like where does something like that goes through the full cycle, where does it have to go to get interested again?
Doge, for me, it's not, it's, don't
Forever.
care.
Like a penny. Like, doesn't matter.
Yeah, like, it's one of those things where, like, what is the remaining upside in it? Buy it again when it goes, like, down tons, if there's another bear market or something. But the upside is, like, the main mistake I can make is, like, what? It becomes, like, a weird currency of the internet thing. What do they fork to a smart contract chain or something? If they fork into a smart contract chain, you can buy it when that happens. It's not going to materially outperform all other crypto. The risk of it just seems very high. And like the community, I tweeted the other day, like, remember when Doge was going to $1? And Barry Silbert replied to me saying, yeah, who could have guessed that wouldn't happen or something? And then all these Doge people, I went fully, really like weird in my replies, been like, well, the whole market is down. So how can you expect Doge to be down? And I was like, well, the whole market made new all-time highs since then, and Doge didn't. And they were like, no, the whole market's down together. I'm like, it's just a rejection of reality. And when that starts to happen, I start to feel like a little bit concerned when like there's huge communities like that, because it's never historically like signaled like the bottom. It's never been like, oh, look, all these people have created a religious group. At the bottom, that's never happened. At the bottom, there's no one around.
Yeah, I like that a lot. You just got me thinking now, if I put all these people in a poll, like who would win for the most interesting cult, you know, between the flat earthers and anti-vaxxers, Bitcoiners, Doge people. Like it's a fun, it's a fun poll. I guess the overlap is just like Gainsey.
He's all of them.
So let's assume there's a bear market. It's not a super cycle. We go on repeat. What do you think are the themes that will thrive? The themes that will die? Like where does the what are the results of that?
So I wrote a thread about this. I'm going to try and find it.
While you mentioned that, this is one where it clicked to me finally when DeFi summer happened, but somehow I managed to get all the way through the bear market without realizing, like, oh yeah, Chainlink went up that whole time. Like, just, you know, and then I realized Chainlink has a ton of impact on DeFi, and what they were building was this kind of primitive that a lot of other DeFi tools used. And I should have caught on to this concept of DeFi way sooner, and I failed to do that, to acknowledge, like, to see through just kind of the pain of a bear market and see what's doing something different than everything else that I can learn from or take information from. And I imagine that we'll see the same thing occur again, where something will just act differently than the rest of the market.
Yeah. When was Chainlink? It
launched
sale?
in 2017, but it didn't really, it was one of those things where it kicked off and did things and starting in 2018. And then really caught momentum, you know, public product, all that kind of stuff in 2019. I'm sure from a community perspective, it was a slow grind, but in general, I think like projects that launch in the bear market are much more likely to go up in a bear market, because just from like everyone's cost basis and like if you imagine price as a function with variables that you can adjust, which would impact the price, then a big variable in a bear market is like everyone's entire portfolios are down. So even the good projects will have a lot of like pain sellers who are like, I'm down 60, 70%, I'm selling everything. They're not like, I'm down 60, 70%, I'm selling everything apart from these two things, which I've specifically identified as very good. They're like, they clearly don't know what they're doing. That's why they're down 70% in the first place. But I think if we have a bear market, then 95% of trendy alt layer ones die. They fail to maintain ecosystems. They're paying too much money in security to developers, for liquidity at the moment. If they have a massive war chest, I think they might be all right. But if they're going to struggle with fundraising, which I think there's a few cases of, I think they'll just disappear. Any coin that's doing like proper Ponzonomics for growth will die, where like basically requires constant inflows of new participants for the tokenomics to make sense. And there's a lot of them where you can design the tokenomics in a way that when tons of participants are flooding in, it looks amazing. It creates the best chart, but you can also design tokenomics where it's just kind of market neutral, right? And in bear markets, sometimes they look quite bad. In bull markets, they look quite bad. And in bear markets, they're like, oh, these tokenomics start to look a bit better. But it's just like, you know, because it's not so short-term focused. I think most NFTs with a roadmap will be abandoned and die, because like it's that, was it Buffett quote where it's like, if you show me the incentives, I'll show you the outcome. And like the incentive was to build the NFT project so you can get a lot of money. And if you build the rest of the roadmap, you don't get no more money. So I think that unless they're really, really passionate about whatever they're building, they'll disappear, and therefore most of them will disappear. I think metaverse GameFi stuff, virtually all to zero. I think they're similar to CryptoKitties in that
their like NFTs were like a very good idea, and CryptoKitties were very early to a trend. But again, like being so early is sometimes just being wrong. And Metaverse and GameFi, I've noticed, have some of the most nuts valuations out there, like totally unjustifiable. But equally, they don't really have enough capital to build something sustainable through a long bear market either. There are a couple with really, really, really big war chests, like they have extreme amount of money, who can keep building. But sometimes that's not even a good thing either. I'll mention that in a second. I think meme coins all to zero. Like if there's a huge risk off, like the late stage market participants that came in to speculate on the most like zombie herd game of chicken type things, they'll truly have a sobering moment of like, why do I own this? Like, why do I own Doge Elon Sonic 69 coin? Like that actually has no value. Why did I ever think I could sell this? I think anything where there is a constant token emission requirement goes to zero. Like if you need to constantly emit tokens for people to put capital into your system so that your product works, it's likely that as prices go down, a bunch of that liquidity just will think that the APY you're offering is no longer good enough because they're going to lose 10, 20% on the year anyway on their collateral. So why would they get, 10, 20% APY of your token, which is dropping at the same time? What are you laughing at?
Someone with the username High Leverage, which is a good preface for this, said, okay, so that's all my bags to zero. But yeah, like if you're getting 20% APY, but the token's going down, so you're actually not going to end up with 20% at the end of the year, and your collateral's going down, people are not going to keep propping up those protocols if it's a requirement. I think there's also a lot of products that pumped on a narrative, like they played the meta game very well, but the product doesn't work or isn't completed or is just bad overall. I think a lot of them are in the MEV coin type bits as well. There's a few others, but I think all of them get decimated because their product's actually not good and they were just over fluffed. Sorry, that's maybe offensive to your fluffs. They were they were just like or store value.
Fluffs going up, mate. Yeah, I'm gonna change my mind on fluffs because when I was saying they're going to zero, they were just going up. So I'm gonna be bullish to try and make them go down. Yeah, so I said the projects with big war chests can build the whole way through, but again, if you look at where the incentives are, projects with these massive war chests sort of become like CFO companies sometimes, where their main goal is to like preserve and protect the treasury and like move it out of any sort of regulatory threats and make sure like how much of this treasury can we like personally take home without going to jail type activities. And I think we saw a bunch of that 2017, 2018, right? Where like
EOS and Waves and some of these were like famously bulky treasuries. I'm not sure.
I don't know. Like I don't know specifically about any of them what happened, and we should say allegedly so we don't get sued. But but like I swear there are like some relatively high profile cases of like this company moved a lot of money to this company through the way of investment, and it's just like wait, they're just wasn't that the treasury? I think it's gone. It's over there now. Oh, shit. So I think that will become a big drain on team focuses. They just become complacent. Like, I have all this money. We could build something, but like, why? We're not going to get more money than we've got right now anyway. I think regulatory pressure comes online at some point, and there'll be a lot of like decentralized in name only type projects that'll go under, wind down, or maybe issue a claim on the treasury in exchange for burning the asset or something. Maybe. On the flip side, I think there are a bunch of projects that'll do quite well in a bear market where their utility increases. I saw a bunch of like potential scenarios for how you could use Ribbon through a bear market that all seemed very compelling. And I don't know anything about the Ribbon tokenomics. I'm not an investor. I don't own any Ribbon, and I'm not paid by Ribbon to say this. So I'm just saying, like, that there were interesting use cases for the use of the product. And if you have products like that where through a bear market they actually shine a bit more, maybe they could do well. Tokenomics pending. I don't know about Ribbon specifically. And then I think young, hungry teams that like haven't really made it yet will have their eyes on the prize and be like, bear market, time to build. Next bull market, we're the kings. So I think finding those teams will be pretty important, or finding projects that have sort of transcended away from being run by one team into being more like a public protocol or like common good, where this is no longer maintained by like three dudes. It's actually maintained by this company, the original three dudes. One of like the original dudes has started a new company to build in a pivot, and then tertiary companies like, we need this, so we've added some contributors to it. I think stuff like that is showing a bit of resilience to the future.
That in particular to me stands out because a lot of times I feel like it's like, oh yeah, here's X protocol, and then here's X protocol labs, and those are the two entities that participate on this thing that's supposedly this like wide open multi-developer landscape. But I feel like if you have X protocol and then like 5 or 6 or 7 companies and a handful of individuals, and they're all developing on that for the common good of the protocol itself, and they're like independently incentivized by their stake in it, that's like really interesting for the longevity potential and the decentralized nature of it.
Yeah, I think when there's a bunch of like very good teams and they said, look, this is the best solution actually, we're going to build on this solution because we think this is important in the future and will be important in 5 years, and they like agree to work on that together. I think that's like a mega bullish, but there's not many examples of it. And again, it might just go through a natural cycle. You might not hold those things and like survive. They might go down 99% because the market's irrational, but I think they're better, like long-term, you can have conviction in them. I think 60% of people that made life-changing money in this cycle will just simply lose it all in like a similar amount of time they made it, maybe even quicker. Just like bag holding to like doubling down on dips that keep dipping. Like a bunch of them have been taught, you buy the dip and then you're rich again. And I think they'll learn that you buy the dip and it keeps on dipping, and then you deployed your money too early, and you just bought like 25% down and it actually goes like 90% down or something. And then I think they'll switch too late to like making money both ways and like learn to short at the bottom like Substram did. God,
that was epic. That was literally, ETH was $85 or something when they did that. Yeah,
the video was like, it's just drop below 100, we're going to start shorting. And I think those people will die on leverage if like they were bull market geniuses and then try and make money both ways. It don't really work out. I think crypto YouTubers will, their business model incentivizes them to sort of ignore the fact there might have been a top. And like, even if it's not conscious, they don't really want there to be a top because their videos are just like best altcoins for next month, right? Like, Bitcoin's going to 300,000 next month, Ripple's going to 200 next month type things. And that's their business. Like, they release a video, a bunch of people watch it, they get some money for watching that video, and sometimes they can put advertisements into their videos, what people pay for, because they have a big audience, and the audience, what they want is the dream, right? They want to be rich, so they watch these videos that tell them how they're going to be rich. So I think YouTuber coins will be really unusual markets, but I don't really know how they'll play out. But I think they'll show like the best altcoins for the next month, like 6 to 8 months after the tops happened. They're just still going, and then they'll realize again a bit too late.
I feel like that's
I think there's a bunch of
what you have to do. Not as a YouTuber, but as a market participant, your ability to identify, all right, it's over. I need to find an escape route, like with some pump that comes or whatever, you know, and that's my opportunity to de-risk at least a lot versus this consistent hopium. I mean, I definitely went through a decent amount of that in certainly early 2018, of being like, oh yeah, you know, like maybe now because the market was irrational about something that I liked, now it'll become more rational about the things that I like, even though like most of the other stuff, you know what I mean? Yeah, learning some of those lessons, I just feel like is necessary for your first time out of a cycle. So let me ask you a meta question on that, which is, you know, we run a podcast, a media show, about crypto. How can we address the market when we feel like it's like clearly a bear market? How can we address our audience and talk and create a conversation?
I mean, I think as long as like, I honestly don't think anyone really tunes into this for like alpha. Most of the time we're just giggling. But like, I think we just got to try and tell the truth about what we think is happening, and not have a business model that if your business model requires you to be bullish on stuff, then it doesn't really work through a bear market, right? Because like, if your business model is like a project wants to raise money, so they pay you to advertise it for them, whether you disclose the advertisement or not, you issue this advertisement, you have to be bullish on that asset to issue the advertisement, right? Like, even if you're personally bearish, the advert is a bullish ad. You're not like, no one's paying you to say short this stuff. Like, it's like, oh, can you tell people to short our new IDO or whatever? Because that doesn't exist. So I think as long as you don't have a business model based on that, I think it's fine, right? Like, I try not to, and I think that you try not to as well, share too much of our own market projections on this channel, because I think it's irresponsible to do so. I think people that watch have different risk tolerances. They see people that have been in crypto for a long time and they say, oh, those people are geniuses, or look, they've made a lot of money or whatever, so I'll just do what they say. And like, in a best case scenario, I'll be right 65% of the time. So if I'm wrong and someone goes all in and like ruins themselves, I feel kind of responsible for that. And they definitely feel like I'm responsible for that, even if they ignored all my other like comments about risk management or whatever. So instead, I think providing an environment that people can listen and learn to think from themselves and talk about the types of like ways of thinking about stuff that can help you make money, rather than like, you should take these actions to make money. It's like, okay, here are the people, and how here are like the people that manage to make money and how they think about stuff. I think that's way more interesting anyway. Like, it obviously doesn't get the same amount of viewers. People just want to be told what to do so they can become rich, not like listen to some like fool talking like half philosophical weird shit because he made a bunch of money and now he thinks he's a whatever. Not
to mention, like, you and I could have different opinions. The guests have a different opinion. Next week's guests have a different opinion. Like, and any or all of us could be wrong on that in terms of how we share it. Yeah. So
yeah, I like it. I don't think we ever tell people what to do, honestly. I don't think we ever like shill anything on the show. I don't think we ever like, so I think that's like totally reasonable. And I think actually, if you're able to provide a way for normal people to kind of stay in tune with what's happening in crypto, that's not like too technical, not too confusing, not too niche. It's like relatively fun and entertaining. Feels like, you know, like you could like two people at a pub chatting about crypto. And if that's the one thing that they can listen to once a month or once every couple of weeks throughout a long period of drawdown to remain interested in the space. So when interesting stuff is happening, like they hear about it, then like I think that's relatively valuable. But
yeah, we can try to pick up on some of those narratives and bring those interesting people on. I know my opinion is not very valuable anyway. Like about all I know right now is I think we're somewhere between 60% of the way through the bull market to 105% of the way through the bull market. Somewhere in that range. That's about all I know.
Yeah. Sounds right to me.
Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to ask you about, because you've played the role of probably investor most, trader a good bit, builder some. If you were to start a company or a project or side hustle today, what do you think is like a good realm to do it in? What do you find interesting, and which of those roles do you find the most enjoyable? Are you asking from the perspective of me, or
like what would I do if I was someone else?
No, literally, what's your preference?
I don't know. It would be entirely in crypto, if I'm honest. God, I really say if I'm honest a lot, but like
you can catch it every time.
It's weird. I don't know that I would be, because I think that crypto founders take on so much risk and uncertainty that you have to be super, super hungry, like really high appetite, and really convicted in that what you're building is essential for building a better world with a trustless monetary system, to take on all of those risks. And then obviously as your personal situation changes, like just you become less risk tolerant to like certain types of risks. And if you're no longer hugely incentivized by money, instead you think like, okay, what can I do to like make the world more enjoyable for people to live in, or whatever. So I don't know that it would be crypto necessarily, because I don't have an idea in my head where I'm like, this is essential to the crypto ecosystem, and if like no one else is building this, I have to build this. But at the same time, I don't really feel like that about anything, so that's why I haven't built a company. That's why I'm not doing anything right now.
Transition it then to somebody, they could be in like my position, where it's like your first successful cycle, but you're not like, there. You're not disincentivized anymore. And then, or like someone that is deep, hungry, wants to make it, has the drive to do the big things.
Yeah, I think that there's been a massive shift recently in the best way to operate in this ecosystem, where way back when, like when I got in, and maybe up until a couple of years ago, the best thing to do was like keep a normal job. Don't go all in on crypto if you're really hungry, because like it's not so long since it was drug money, and who knows what is going to happen. And over the last couple of years, there's been an introduction of legitimization, which is not entirely removed. There's tons of reg risk, especially in tokenization and those kind of money markets or synthetic equities projects. There's a lot of reg risk in there, but at the same time, companies are buying crypto, they're buying Bitcoin, Ethereum. Regulators are going, how do we sensibly regulate this stuff? Some regulators are saying, how do we crush this stuff? But there are signs of legitimacy, and this cycle in particular, there's been more mainstream things. Like, you've had like OpenSea, I think is a phenomenal startup. If you were early to OpenSea, like congratulations, you basically won the lottery. So I think when I was in crypto in the early days, risk adjusted, the best thing you could do was like basically stack sats and have a normal career if you're a normal person that needed a job, which I was. And now I think it's, and like, yeah, and like full like grind an ecosystem, like grind your, try and get as many Bitcoin or as you could, and then later as many Ethereum as you could. I think that was the best way to participate as a normal person in the ecosystem. Whereas now I think it's sit on your assets, like get as much crypto as you can put into cold storage for as long as you want. Maybe if you feel capable and you're not like a HODL forever type person, play the really macro moves where you sell and buy once every few years. Like right, this is the point I'm selling, and in a few years I'll buy back, or a year or 2 years or whatever. Do that like on a really high level, but don't become a trader. That's like just kind of being an investor, and you're rebalancing your investments when it makes sense. And then spend all of your time working on a crypto company, a crypto protocol or something. I think founding them is really hard. And I think in startups, being a founder is you get way more of the upside than being an early employee. Because if you're a founder, you get material percentage, you get huge reputational boost, and you get all of the good stuff, and the same risk as the early employees. Whereas if you're an early employee but not a founder, let's say you're employee number 10 or something of a startup, you don't get that much equity. Yeah, you get a bit, but like it's not like life-changing really, unless you're at Facebook or something. You take all the same risk as the founders, like lower salary, the company can go to zero, blah, blah, blah. But the upside is massively reduced. And then who knows if you even get liquidity. Founders can do secondary sales, employees often can't. So in traditional startups, it's often weighted towards founders. Whereas in crypto, because of token dynamics and stuff, there is that sort of balanced, I think, the other way. So being an early employee is actually way more like risk adjusted, higher reward than being a founder. Sure, the founder gets more percentage, right? Like Stanny from Aave has like way more Aave than anyone else or whatever. But people in the early team, maybe they have 10% of what he has or 5% of what he has, still made life-changing money. They can still sell, where if it was a startup, they probably couldn't, unless it had IPO'd. They don't have to work on it forever. Stanley can't just like walk off like and go, I'm going to build something else, because it's like, well, you just abandon your protocol. Like he has to like work on that for the next 5-10 years of his life now, I guess. And like if the project starts failing, Stanny's got to keep working on it. It's like it gets worse. He's got to keep working on that. Early employees, they can just bail. If you're in a traditional startup and the startup stops working, you wind it down, but you've got the street cred because you were the founder. Oh, we failed. Most startups fail for these reasons. Like, yeah, I'm going to try again. If you're an early team member, you don't get anything. You're an early team member at a failed startup. You're like, what did you do wrong? So I think if I was one of those people now, I would just join a project that's like pre-seed or around seed to get a decent allocation of tokens. And I work on it for the next 4, 5, 6 years and try and build something really valuable. And if it looks like it sucks or the founder's insane or, whatever, just go to a different one and do it again, because the upside from being early to these protocols or companies or whatever is gigantic. And there's much less risk, I think, in being early team member and not a founder. But I'm probably wrong for some reason I haven't considered. And
I hope you are, because you didn't make it any easier for me to hire as a non-tokenized startup. Yeah. But I think it's quite interesting, right? Because a lot of people want to go into crypto, but don't want to work for a token project because they still think tokens might be like kind of a scam. So I think a lot of Facebook, Google type employees will want to go to non-tokenized crypto projects. And I think you'll see more and more crypto IPOs soon. Yeah, I think there's one of the interesting takes from this year, and we can talk about DAOs some, is a lot of the people that have gone to work for DAOs have really been kind of hit with cold water as you get the decentralized organization. It's like, that's what it's called. And there's very little structure in most of the DAO frameworks that we have today. Whereas if you're in a more, the company operates in a centralized way, but it has kind of this tokenized reward mechanic, that could be quite successful. But if you get to the ones where from a operational standpoint, they're more what you would expect or want as a investor in a protocol for it to be more decentralized and not top down, it's not as rewarding of a place to be as an employee. You just feel, it's more like traditional open source software. You just feel like you're getting crapped on all the time. I'm not quite sure how you create balance there, but it's something probably to consider as an employee. Do you think the DAO model has potential in the future beyond like get together and invest in something like Constitution DAO? It's capital formation. It's kind of different than, or like even Pleaser DAO. It's kind of like capital formation. But then, you have the DAO model where it's like, we're going to now have this like framework for how we go build something big, a protocol, a concept. What do you think the potential success models look like for DAOs?
I think it's interesting, right? Because in some ways, I think DAOs are currently a reg arbitrage, a type of reg arbitrage, where often the DAO would operate better as a company, but they want to issue a token, so they're a DAO, and that actually makes the project operate worse. But because they're a DAO, the illegal thing that they're doing is now suddenly fine because it's decentralized or something.
Theoretically.
Yeah. So like I think there are examples of like very good DAOs and very bad DAOs. I think they're good ideas as coordination mechanisms. And if you imagine like retaining ownership of an open source project and getting a vote in an open source project that's not political, so you can build something and retain some ownership of that. I think that is probably a good thing. But I think the best DAOs are not going to be the ones people like in a bull market. Like, I think the best DAOs might even be ones where ownership is quite concentrated. So if you take a really extreme end of the spectrum, right, you can imagine a DAO with like 10 or 15 entities holding the tokens, and that's it. There's like 15 addresses that have this token. And they're collaboratively building something, and they have a share of like that represented by their token. Maybe their token accrues some revenue and pays it out to the token holders, which is these like 10 to 15 companies or whatever. But that's technically a DAO, right? It's decentralized, and that 15 different companies are contributing to it, and they may be arguing about it, and sometimes, go in different directions. But on the other end of the spectrum, you've got 500,000 retail investors who are making short-term trades, getting angry at the small team of like underpaid developers, and ignoring governance entirely until a proposal that comes up that somehow changes the tokenomics. And then they're really interested. It's like, developers have no coins. We're going to do a vote to give them some. And they're all like, no. Like, no. We can't increase supply. That's bad for me. No, that'll ruin my trade. Vote no. So like, I think if you take those two DAOs, the one with 15 companies working on something collaboratively will work much better as a DAO. So I also think DAOs that are born in bear markets, that retail sees a bit boring, are probably actually the most interesting. Like MakerDAO seems to be like quite high in rigor, incentivized to find like the right answer, and they maintain like very important things. Whereas in a bull market, you just get unorganized DAOs, and it's the worst part of a messy startup, but with loads of unsophisticated investors getting really angry at you all the time, and taking like really short-termist views on stuff. And I'm not entirely confident that like buy to vote is that good of an idea, honestly, because I think it really matters who owns the tokens, and you see different strategies deployed with VCs, right? Like you see a bunch of VCs who are willing to go like, fuck these founders, sell everything. And if they take a decent percentage of a project and like vote for short-termist like stuff, and then if something passes they don't like, they can just crush the project by selling everything. I think that's like a very bad scenario. And like some VCs, they're just like wrong. They take the wrong approaches to stuff. They're very aggressive with capital. They've got like misaligned incentives with project founders. Maybe they want to get their LPs their cash back by some like time, and project founders like think a better path is taking a little bit more time and building things with a better base. So it's like, I think those things can go very wrong. But in the best case scenarios, I can see lots of highly intelligent, well-coordinated parties just trying to find the truth, trying to find the right answer and build the best possible thing, with everyone on the sort of same team or wanting a similar thing with similar time horizons. So I think that's quite interesting. What I do think, which is maybe a novel take, because I feel like everything I just said is like sort of common sense, but I think DAOs will demand a new type of VC, and you will not see hedge fund type like trader type funds in seed rounds, because DAOs, like good DAOs, will just like reject them. Instead, I think you'll have much more like venture contributor type DAOs, where like VCs, where the VC is basically like a research academic builder unit that just has loads of money. And to be a good VC in crypto for a DAO requires you to like have like a research and development wing. It requires you to be contributing at the highest level to the layer one that you're incubating. It requires you to be building new primitives that expand the space rather than just like buying and dumping. And yeah, of course, you'll still have shit DAOs that just want some fundraising. And you know, they'll accept the shit project, the shit VCs who are just going to sell everything. But I think like that sort of venture contributor type character, like a little bit like Delphi Digital's trying to be now. I don't know if they're entirely there yet. Paradigm made popular. Paradigm's good at like positioning themselves that way. And Georgios.
Paradigmification of investment vehicle.
I think they've started to go that way, but I think it's going to be like 100 times more, such that the current paradigm will look like an old VC versus the like future like venture contributor type VCs. But I don't know. You can also be cynical about it, right? And like money always wins.
Yeah, I do kind of wonder to what degree there's a conflict or potential for conflict there, where the investor with all of these like really talented individuals and participants, they're like strong arming the team who has their own opinions, and there ends up being conflict in like what direction things go. Like, how do you be supportive rather than like micromanage the startup? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, I guess a good part of the DAO is like, it's cool. We can just vote on it then and see who agrees, see which way the vote goes. And another part of it is like, if you don't like it, sell your position. Like, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think like the current state of sushi is basically what I expected sushi to be after Chef Nomi left. Like, you know, a really chaotic thing. And for a while, there was like a glimmer of like holy shit, it's working. Like we have managed to coordinate through the chaos a group of people that are trying to find the right answer and build something good. And then again, it just like descended again when the market turned. It was just like, you know, people don't care in a bull market when the things are going up. They let people get on with stuff. And sometimes like small centralized teams are just more efficient, especially in the early stages of projects where things need to get done.
So I feel like a lot of people in this market cycle, they're like only on Twitter and Discord, and they think, well, the only way for me to coordinate or work with people, whatever, is just through a DAO. I need to join a DAO. I need like all these ETH addresses that come together to do things. Historically, that's more been just a group of people in a Telegram room or something that kind of become friends, or maybe they go to conferences and hang out together or whatever. How has that side of things impacted you over your crypto career? How do you and how would you recommend other people find something similar where it's like your tight crew that is able to talk about stuff more freely than you would over, the verified twitter.com name of Cobie, with 500,000 people watching or whatever. What's the value to you of kind of a smaller group of people that you are able to collaborate with?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting actually, because when you were talking about DAOs and maybe like the new Telegram groups or whatever, I realized there's a bunch of DAOs that I contribute to, like I'm not a member of. I don't own any tokens. Like I'm like actually the most useful person in that DAO, even though I'm not in it. So that's actually quite weird, isn't it? Yeah. Like I'm not a member of Pleaser DAO. Like I don't own no Pleaser DAO tokens. Telegram. But I've helped them with several things. I've helped them with like multi-sigs. I took them the Wu-Tang sale info, helped M with a bunch of stuff. So like that's kind of weird, but I'm not in Pleaser DAO. So I feel like I'm spiritually in Pleaser DAO. I just don't care about owning the tokens of Pleaser DAO. Yes, that's weird. I guess I'm gonna have to start saying that after I take profit on a coin. Like, I'm no longer holding this coin. I did appreciate the move on it, and I'm still spiritually in it. I just no longer hold any. I just dumped it, but I'm spiritually there with you. All right, continue on. Yeah. And spiritually, I'm not in any of the coins I'm holding either. Some of them I'm very spiritually out. Wishing I was actually out, yeah, I mean, in crypto in the very early days, I started a little Telegram group called 27 Club. And it was a group of just like people I met and like liked and trusted. So we could talk about stuff like, what do you think is going to happen with the Bitcoin market, or like, share research, like, did you see this? Did you see that? Or it turns out that Poloniex is delisting Supercoin or whatever. If I hadn't made that group, I don't think I would have made it, because there were so many times where even I could just go there to talk when I was like stressed or anxious or feel like I'd done something wrong and, unwind, I guess. And like 70-80% of that group like didn't make it. They're not active in crypto anymore, or they are active, but their net worth is very similar to like what it was back then or so. Like of all the people that I know that have done really well in crypto and have made it, they've all had one of these groups of their own, right? They've had a group of friends that they're crypto friends. Most of the time they don't know who each other are. They've never seen each other's face or know their real name or whatever. They share alpha, just like encourage each other through like the fucking terrible parts of the market, help out with research or, whatever. So I think that's like super, super important. I wouldn't have like managed to get through without it. Like I had a bunch, Romano and Ben ABTC, who passed away last year, Drac as well, who I don't know if he's still active anymore, but I spoke tons to Jeebus throughout the cycles. Jeebus is weird because he always kind of disappears after a little bit. He like sticks around and just goes offline for like 6 months. Angelo, BTC, and I used to be like really close, don't talk so much anymore. So there were all these people had their own little crews and little groups, and like I think it's basically essential if you're going to make it through, because crypto is confusing. Too many things happen. You need people to talk to it about, and like you don't want your partner to be a crypto person, because like it's already too much. You want someone that doesn't know what crypto is and is not going to tell you about like a rug pull or something. So you have to have some people in your life that are all in as well.
Oh, yeah. Cosign. My wife does not care about crypto. She likes some of the things that crypto could do, but she does not care about crypto. So I wanted to talk a bit about, we said we'd come back on it later, maximalism and tribalism in crypto, and I guess the dangers of it, sometimes the potential benefits of it. Like how can we identify it for when it might be good for a trade, and then how can we avoid it when it's like damaging to ourselves, our views, like creates closed-mindedness?
Yeah, I think maximalism is quite weird, right? Because, well, it's funny. It's not very well defined, and its sort of amorphous existence has led to confusion about it. But if you like really, really, really zoom out, it's quite an interesting study of humanity, because finding a group of people and picking a side and hating another group that is virtually 99% the same as you is historically quite common throughout humanity. You know, you see it in like sport hooliganism and stuff, even like today. In crypto, it's funny because the people in Bitcoin camp are 99% the same as the people in the Ethereum camp, like similar lives, similar age demographic, similar beliefs, like probably similar net worth when they get in. They're led to crypto for some reason. So they're virtually entirely the same with maybe some small differences. That means when they go to the sport thing, they wear a different shirt. And these groups form that are identical people. Like if they went to a bar and they met at a bar, they'd be great friends. And they just project disdain and hatred at each other online all the time as a hobby to make friends with their other friends who are like 100% the same as them. It's super weird. And then they take that trait as the most important one above all else. So it's like, well, if they like my coin, I can actually overlook a bunch of these things that are actually completely socially unacceptable. I'll just forgive that because I like my coin. So it's weird. But maybe as human beings, we need that because we went to Colosseum fights to cheer on violence like way back when. And maybe it's normal for us to sit in our comfort bubbles and spend our time belittling or arguing with people that disagree with us in subtle ways. Maybe it's a new form of violence. But because maximalism isn't very well defined, I think it's like kind of hard to discuss. I would have described myself prior to 2017, 18-ish as a Bitcoin maximalist. But my understanding of Bitcoin maximalism is an old version of the term, I think, which is very different to what it would be most would say it is today. I would have described Bitcoin maximalism back then, or what I felt like I was a person that believed the only crypto with real value was Bitcoin. I think most people in crypto from the Bitcoin Talk forum days, I think all of those people would have agreed that despite jumping on those Instamind threads and experimenting in other networks, I think there was a shared common understanding that it's all a largely speculative casino to earn more Bitcoin, right? Like that was the unspoken handshake agreement. Like none of us believe these things have long-term value apart from Bitcoin, but we accept that bull markets have speculative trends and people try out new things that temporarily people play a game of chicken with. And I think everyone kind of knew that, and everyone was trading altcoins to get more Bitcoin. And that's what Bitcoin maximalism was. It wasn't that, like there wasn't people stacking Namecoin. There wasn't people like doing all they could to get as much Litecoin as possible. Everyone was trading for more Bitcoin, and altcoins were okay because they were experiments that Bitcoin could learn from if there was anything ever worth learning, which was kind of the attitude. There probably isn't. But we'll try, and some things might gain a bit of value, and like some things will go up, and people will temporarily think there is a lot of value here. but Bitcoin maximalism was like this. I'm trading for more Bitcoin, really, and truthfully, I still feel mostly this way. But if you just replace Bitcoin with like Bitcoin maximalism with like value maximalism, and in crypto, I think there's a couple of extra options now where there wasn't before. I think they're very limited. You can count them on one hand.
Let's do it.
But I think that's like the kind of maximalism that was prevalent in those days, and I think that was like a very healthy kind of maximalism. It was like this, like people. It was just people in a common group that understood the same thing. Like Bitcoin is extremely like by far the most important invention of the last however long, and all of these like financial experiments that are forking it may be an interesting addendum to Bitcoin, but like at the end of the day, Bitcoin's the only real important thing. And today, I think like the Bitcoin maximalist character has changed a lot in a similar way to how sort of political influences have changed as well in the same sort of time period. So if you go back to like 10 years ago and look at Republican or Democratic like thought leader or news hosts or whatever, your propagandists, they were relatively sophisticated about it, and they would go for a drink with their the enemy propagandists. They probably didn't even use the term enemy. It was a bit more civilized, and there was a bit more nuance to the conversations regarding like the topics at hand. Whereas now it's like shock tactics, shouting, calling the other person like evil, and extremely inflammatory sort of dialogues happening. And I think Bitcoin maximalist character has just sort of mirrored that transition, but on Bitcoin. So it's like originally it was Bitcoin is the only viable thing, and we're all stacking more Bitcoin, to anyone that isn't is evil, a scammer, and an enemy. And I think this sort of like Tucker Carlsonization of the Bitcoin maximalist has like not really done it any favors, because instead they're just now seen as a group of people that are wrong because they told you that these things were a scam, but then the things that were a scam went up loads. So like if you believed them, you missed out on money. And then you've seen the evolution of an Ethereum maximalist too. It's started to happen. And even Dogecoin maximalists came around when Sheep started to do well. And I think it's a response to threat, where they see
potential,
yeah, they see something and they feel worried about it. So this sort of like toxic maximalism takes hold a little bit. In the same way, you don't see any Ethereum people getting upset about Cardano, because they don't see it as a threat, right? They see it as a joke. So you see them making jokes about it sometimes, but you don't see them saying Cardano's not decentralized, Cardano's not, this, and like getting frustrated, not making jokes about like lol Charles coin. But they do that about Solana and Avalanche. They get really upset about the they've not been truthful about their technology. The chain went down, and they get angry about that. And I think that's a good way of seeing that it is actually a response to the threat, because those other ecosystems have started to do quite well and started to grow. I think it isn't like a natural sort of immune response to something else doing well when you want your thing to do well. The thing that like I don't totally understand is, well, there's two things. I saw a tweet by Sassano the other day, Anthony Sassano, and he said something like, it's not that I think Avalanche is bad or Solana is bad or blah, 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 blah. I just prefer Ethereum, and that's the one I want to see do well. And I was like, that's like you saying you like this sports team. It's like, like if we lose the league, I don't mind. That's just the one I want to see. Like, it's not I want to support the winner. It's just like, I want this one to win. That's weird to me. It's like you should be trying to figure out what is going to win and bet on that. Completely dislikes, not like sports. Sports, I get it. You pick your favorite team and you go with them even if they keep losing. The other thing I don't understand entirely is this like extremely angry, toxic maximalism, where they're saying they're like trying to save people because they're like they say that, you know, they have so much conviction in their investment, yeah, that it's like, oh, it's the hardest money, or it's ultrasound money, or whatever like the relative maximalist says. They have so much conviction in this investment, and it's like, you know, it's the anti-fragile system, it's guaranteed to succeed, it's going to go up forever, unless people keep talking about the other coins. It's like, if so you have this like anti-fragile system that can be completely toppled by people buying a different coin. So to avoid like the exposed fragility or the emotion that is revealed by that, I think they then go to the crutch of, oh, we're trying to save other people, we're trying to like stop them buying a scam or something. And I just think like it doesn't make sense. Like, I don't think anyone should be trying to influence someone else's like financial decision making at all. Like, if you're doing all this and then you're wrong about Bitcoin, aren't you just as bad? Like, you more made people lose money. And I get you high conviction on it, but if you're high conviction on it, like, you can just wait for it to happen. Like, you don't need to be dicks to people. Like, I don't know. I don't get it, but it's frustrating because you see it a lot in both the Ethereum and the Bitcoin community now. This sort of like gross maximalism, where like everything else is like, and they have the same talking points despite the coins being different. So it's just,
yeah,
I don't really like. I think it's completely counterproductive and like against their own goals.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and I typically don't like the crypto to religion type of comparisons, but it does kind of strike me as like that, like maybe an evangelical, but also libertarianism, where like you can express your view, but you also don't like tell anyone else what to do, versus like more of a status thing. It's like, well, this is the law in this land, and this is what you will also believe, you know. And those they could believe the same thing, like Bitcoin is the coin that you need to own, or Ethereum is the coin that you need to own, but have different ways of going about it. And I feel like the share or evangelize, but like don't mandate, or don't like, you know, go ham on somebody because they believe differently than you. That's where you kind of let the thing that you believe in work, rather than, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But I think at the end of the day, a lot of people are building like brands and communities and boosting their own career goals through adopting this inflammatory rhetoric, which is now trendy thanks to social media and stuff. So I think a lot of like Bitcoin and Ethereum maxis who are like not vocal are actually doing like this. I think like the toxic, like very loud, are like a really, really minor percentage, and therefore they get a lot of coverage despite being like mostly unimportant in the history of like they won't be spoken about in 10 or 15 or 20 years, no matter what. Bitcoin becomes the world currency, no one's going to care there was like someone being really horrible to people on the internet because they like different coins. And if Bitcoin goes to zero, they won't be remembered either. So it's just a tiny niche sub-community, and like most Bitcoin maxis who are like true Bitcoin maxis are actually just builders in the background and believe something and don't care what other people do. And same with Ethereum maxis. My final comments on maximalism, I think, the time I'm like very, very, very against it is when it's used as a crutch to not have to think about stuff or not learn. And the reason I will never hopefully be a maxi of anything is because I think it requires you to just be pessimistic about the future. I think it requires you to say nothing ever better will happen, or nothing better will ever come along. There'll be nothing worth paying attention to in the future because I've got my Bitcoin or I've got my Ethereum or whatever. And I think staying open-minded and trying loads of stuff and, you know, even like going, yeah, I'm not such a fan of how they've done X, Y, and Z, but these things are interesting, so I'm going to try this thing out and maybe spend some time in the ecosystem. It's only like positive for you as a person. Like if you want to exist in the space and like spend time here and like contribute to it or benefit from it, the only real way you can do that is by staying open-minded and trying everything. And like on a long enough timeline, all maxis are wrong. Like even if you were a gold maxi through the like gold like bull cycles, so you're still a gold maxi, now you're wrong. Like it's not done anything for the last 10 years. Maybe it'll go on a massive super cycle now, you could be right again, but you could have put your money to much better use over the last like 10 years or whatever. And on a long enough timeline, Bitcoin maxis will be wrong as well, the same way gold maxis were. Long enough timeline, Ethereum maxis will be wrong. So yeah, maybe I'll be an entropy maxi.
Yeah, that's good. Kyle Salami in the chat too. So that so this is very cringy in like a Silicon Valley sense, you know, we're gonna make the world a better place, you know, that type of thing. I wonder if you think that crypto still has a chance to achieve something along those lines. Like if you think there's a potential purity for crypto in the world to accomplish things that has the chance to improve people's lives. And what are threats to that? Whether that's just like, you know, multi-coin and 3AC and whatnot, or like the richest people in the world and we're all scanning our eyeballs into orbs. Like, what do you think the range of outcomes is there? And yeah. So like, I think if you separate the answer of like, will crypto VCs get like super rich? I think the answer is yes, regardless of if crypto is good for the world. So I think ultimately the worst scenario is if it's not good for the world, but the crypto VCs get super rich anyway. Yeah. And like, you know, in the scenario like that, crypto is just historically this ephemeral mania that becomes a distant evocation of like greed and desperation in uncertain economic times, where Suzu and Kyle became decabillionaires by riding that all the way to the top. So like, not to hate their capacity to become decabillionaires, congratulations, but that would be the least good outcome for the world. Yeah, but like, I think the answer is, so them getting rich is yes, regardless, right? Like they're already doing it. If crypto is not good for the world, they're rich anyway. Like if crypto is good for the world, they'll be even more rich. But I don't think that's a bad thing, right? Like in every sort of boom cycle ever, whenever value is created, some people benefit from that more than others, and often the people financing it or co-building it or whatever are the greatest benefitors or whatever, benefitors. But if I didn't think crypto would be good for the world, I'd be out doing some reputational laundering now, mate. I'd be like working on some like more saintly industry, like educating kids or something, like, I don't know, something like that. Like I have like enough money to not bother. Like it's not like a number goes up, and you know, there's certainly no need to do. I would not be putting my face on a podcast if I thought something was like net bad for the world, just like hours and hours long documentation of like, look how he promoted this thing, which killed off entirely the lower class. It's like, I don't think that would be a good idea. So yeah, I think it can be good for the world. I think when I got into crypto, a bunch of the sentiment that I had then has persisted, and a bunch of what DeFi was able to do showed that you can have a programmatic, open, transparent financial system that treats people the same regardless of like their area code or like whatever other traits banks take into consideration when they're seeing how much they're going to rip you off on payday lending or whatever. I think that having an escape option to
government monetary policy is like already a good thing. So like Bitcoin is, and like stable coins are already doing like good stuff in large parts of the world. I think like lots of that can continue. I think if you have a world where the like financial system is auditable and public, you naturally have a bit less corruption. Obviously, right now in crypto, there's tons of like rug pull scams and stuff because there's so much obfuscation around, and it's so easy to just go hiding on chain. But if you have like HSBC address and like it gets harder for them to money launder all of a sudden.
It amazes me like the smallest tax, if you called it like a bank robbery at gunpoint, would be worldwide news. You know, but if it's on chain, it's like it's just some random people.
But it's interesting to think about, and I don't like thinking about this stuff too much because I don't think it's super actionable, and I really don't like to philosophize on like money. Rather philosophize on like sadness. But I do think if Bitcoin becomes the base money, I think it'll be temporary. Like I don't think a deflationary standard can exist forever. Just by taking the anthropological view and looking into history, we used to have a deflationary standard. It caused some problems after the war. Countries had to come off it. Maybe I can imagine a world where you move back to a temporary, like a deflationary standard, because some things have gone wrong with the current inflationary one, as we like search for like a sustainable like economy or whatever. But I think like a deflationary standard long term has as many problems as a inflationary one. Now I can see Bitcoin forever being a hedge against that inflation, but not the thing that like fiat money is pegged to.
Yeah, so you just think it wouldn't, like, as base money, Bitcoin wouldn't last that way for long, but also it just has the incentive structure that doesn't work as well. Like, assuming also, I guess, that if your population is increasing, your need for like a increased economic productivity, you need to incentivize people to put money to work, and that's kind of the whole concept around like mildly inflationary currency, the 2% peg meme.
Yeah, I mean, like it seems bad to say on crypto Twitter because they're all like people
get mad. People get really mad. I've gotten people mad when I talk about the challenges of deflation.
Yeah, but I just think it would be temporary. And like again, I'm not an expert on it. I think just doing the anthropological look back in history to find answers about the future.
Do you think 1559 can create similar economic disincentives for, say, like DeFi products in the ecosystem, like that people just want to hold ETH instead of using it with any of these innovative tooling mechanisms?
Maybe, yeah. So you end up with like a constant deflationary systems, like ever paying a gas fee is like the worst possible thing you could do. Like maybe I think possible. The thing is with Ethereum ecosystem, like I think problems like that become interesting because it's like, well, everyone getting so rich is making the network worse. So you have a misaligned incentive between the holders of Ethereum and the purpose of Ethereum, which is quite interesting. I think it's a massive oversimplification, right? But like the reason to own Bitcoin is because it doesn't change, and the reason to own Ethereum is because it does. And when Ethereum has problems, they'll happily change monetary policy and stuff like that. It makes it hard to buy and coma button yourself for 10 years because who knows what happens. Come back and they've changed the logo to a dog, and there's 20 billion coins and you missed a few stock splits or something, so your coins are worthless. And that won't happen with Bitcoin. So when problems come up, I think Ethereum will tackle them. When Bitcoin problem comes up, I know it'll be resilient to those problems. And I think that's the philosophy of why you own both and don't care about it, because I personally don't know which is like the right path. So good job I don't have to choose.
Yeah, I like that. I think also there's a little bit of interesting reflexivity on the Ethereum side. So because the currency is also the gas for the network, that it kind of fixes some of those problems. If you're not using it, it gets cheaper by the gas fees, and just makes that interesting. But do you think base money, no matter what form it takes, ends up on a decentralized cryptographic ledger?
If I had to bet, I would probably bet on in countries there is a chain that's like fully KYC'd. To like operate a wallet on the chain, you need a KYC, and there is non-governance token DeFi. So like DeFi without governance tokens, basically. The base asset on that chain is a central bank digital currency. If I had to guess the most probable future, obviously it's not the one I want. It's kind of lame. But I think if you have to guess, that kind of makes sense. And like originally with DeFi, my main skepticism towards it was like, I feel like all this stuff is better without the token, right? Like I think the token's often a distraction for what a lot of this stuff can do and how cool it is. And I think a lot of Bitcoiners then write off the like a lot of DeFi because they just see the token and they just see the similarities to the ICO era where a token price goes up and founders get really rich. And if instead that was not a factor, they'd go, okay, this stuff's really cool. But at the same time, I understand capitalism accelerates innovation by allowing large value capture for founders to like spur people on to like build really cool stuff and get rich. So lots of DeFi probably wouldn't exist without the governance token value capture being available. And if we're truly reflecting on it, loads of the people using the protocols probably wouldn't be using the protocols if they didn't get a token, a subsidy for using them. If I had to guess, yeah, if like you asked me what the like my ideal outcome is, it would be like you have a base layer, a base smart contract chain, which transparently backs like the financial ecosystem, and then maybe you have a few roll-ups per country or something, so you like sit on your roll-up, but like everything settles onto like Globa chain or whatever. But
in before.
Yeah, I just don't think it's super likely, to be honest.
I think that would be, well, we kind of saw it once where like there was kind of this settling on the open protocols for the web. And I don't think it's impossible, but that took a large effort with fewer financial incentives to come to that conclusion for the web. So I think it would be even more challenging for, financial infrastructure. But I would really enjoy potential outcome from that. All right. Is there a question that I have not asked you that you wish I would have asked you? Or have you seen anything in the chat that I should have asked?
I haven't been looking at chat, if I'm honest.
No, that's okay. I heard you've been honest this whole show.
I didn't realize that time. I can talk a little bit about like the importance of like storytelling and narratives in crypto, and it's like part of the metagame conversation that I forgot to mention. And I'll describe the why narratives are so important in crypto through a very simple and oversimplified like function of price. So if you imagine the price of a crypto asset, let's say you've got Brian coin and it's worth $100. And then price, you can break down into its component parts, right? Like what creates the price of a token. Like, and like this is price over time, right? So price is going sideways. Brian Coin, $100, $100, $100, $100. The component parts of price are supply and demand, right? We're being super simple about it. You have demand on one side, which is basically how many people are buying Brian Coin. And then on the other side of the equation, you have supply, which is how many people are selling Brian Coin. And when demand is greater than supply, price go up, Brian Coin good. And when supply is greater than demand, Brian Coin rugs, like Brian Coin to zero. Yeah. Like there's only one Brian Coin, it's you, and your wife got it, so she's happy. But and if you then once again break down the component parts of demand and supply, you start to get a little bit closer into like why narratives are so important in crypto, because demand is made up of component parts like how many people currently want to buy, what is their net worth, has there been a reasonable change in value for like the underlying value of this coin? Like, for example, have they got more market share recently, therefore they get more fees or something? Blah, 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 blah. There's a lot of like what can increase demand variables within it. On the other side, within supply, it's a bit more simple, I think. It's like supply can change based on people wanting to hold for longer. So like people not wanting to sell. Tokenomics changes, token unlocks, stuff like EIP 1559, basically. So if the things that can increase demand is just more people or more money wants to buy, and that's like it. And what can decrease supply is more people want to hold. Narrative is a sub-factor in both of these. Now, the other sub-factors in both of these are like not super actionable during a bull run. Like it's huge developments never really make it's not like you're in the middle of a bull run and they're like making like, oh, we're just going to change a protocol 3 times. So you're like, oh, great, these are big events, whereas fundamentally going to change. Generally, by the time a bull run starts and ends, the coins are pretty similar throughout the majority of it. So the only thing really changing is the narrative. And the most immediate example of this is like paid advertisements and stuff, right? It's like a bunch of attention creates a bunch of potential buyers, which creates demand. So demand goes up, and then those people have bought, the advertisement's over, and the function goes back to previous where there was 0 demand and still the same amount of supply, so the coin goes down. So I think people don't properly attribute value to how important narrative is and how much narrative lets coin prices and valuations get way, way, way out of hand, especially when the only reasonable way to value a lot of these things is comparatively. So people see the most out of hand valuation because they had the best narrative for ages and construct future narratives that rely on this peg of like, oh, well, that was valued at that, which is maybe the upside for this new asset. So I just think like
a couple added brackets there that you can frame that against. Like you come up with these additional still memes, but ways to justify. So one might be what that price is like relative to sales. So like a multiple. And then there's like, okay, well, 5 is a value and 20 is growth. Like this is what we expect. So unless it's 20, it's fine. We're just expecting growth. And then another would be, and this is a great one in crypto versus the previous, it's often in stocks. In crypto, it's like, well, this is based on circulating supply. The other one is based on fully diluted valuation. And everybody knows fully diluted valuation is a meme. You only need to look at circulating supply because that allows the number to go up more. And it's that bracketing enables you to rationalize all those things that you just described.
Yeah, I do think retail investors in crypto are like very, very bad at separating like out all the factors of reality. And like I often feel like they don't have any material that like I feel like half of them, if they just had a spreadsheet and they just wrote down price supply, fully diluted valuation, next unlock, reason I'm buying, and then just wrote that down for every coin, they'd just trade so much better or invest so much better. Because half the time, I think they don't realize, like, they get caught up only in the narrative, or they ignore the changing narratives, and like they buy GameFi coins as an investment at a $40 billion fully diluted valuation without properly considering, okay, the FDV is actually really important for this trade because it's insanely high. At the same time, you have people buying like really low FDV stuff that like the narrative's kind of over. It's like too late or something else. Yeah, like I don't think crypto investors often do like a mental checklist of like, what are all the things I need to consider about this investment? I think they just take positions and don't go well.
I got one more question from the chat and it's probably gonna have to be our last. My family's gonna be here pretty shortly.
All right, we've been going almost 4 hours anyway. Yeah.
So we got asked a lot about the risk management pyramid that you talked about in 2017. Apparently at some point you maybe didn't disown it, but said like it doesn't have to be the thing. Can you tell us what's changed in your view about the risk management pyramid tweets that you shared before?
Let me get it up. Let me grab it. Right, yeah. So I wrote this pyramid because I was talking about buying it was Ubic. Buying a coin. Yeah, I was buying a coin, and then someone was like, why would you bother to buy that? The market cap's so small. And so I explained how there are like tranches of risk, or at least I consider there are tranches of risk where the least risky stuff is obviously like dollars or Bitcoin, depending on your framing. And like maybe like BlockFi style lending where you get a yield on your Bitcoin. That kind of stuff is like the least risky. And then as you go up the risk, it's kind of like going down CoinGecko, right? Like as you go down, stuff gets more risky, and you have like ETH, and back then you had Litecoin, but now it's like ETH and Solana or BNB and stuff are the next sort of riskiest. ETH is probably in a bucket with Bitcoin now, to be honest, and then it's like Solana and BNB and those in the next tranche. And then if you go down again, like the market caps get smaller, but the risk increases. So like you can hold Bitcoin and ETH for maybe 10 years with reasonable confidence, but you can't hold, Metaverse Coin 7 that launched 2 weeks ago, because there's no reasonable proof from
there's the valuable visualization of a pyramid.
Yeah, cheers. There's no reasonable reason why it would be possible that Metaverse 7 coin still exists in however long. And the pyramid was like, as you increase risk, as you go up the risk pyramid, you decrease the amount of capital that you are willing to allocate to each, such that your portfolio always looks like a pyramid where you constantly rebalance so that your risk, part of your portfolio that's really, 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 really at risk is really small, and you constantly rebalance that so that you're not holding tons of risk at any one time. And the reason why I think it's wrong is because if you use this framework to consider entry on a position, I think it works very well. You're taking a new trade, look at your portfolio, which risk tranche does it fall into? Actually, that's the most risky. So the maximum I'm allowed to allocate is 5% as per my scheme, or whatever Cobie's pyramid scheme says. But if it's in the orange tier, like if it's not so risky, but it's like more risky than Bitcoin and ETH, I can allocate maybe 20 or 25%. And I think it works well for taking a position. But the reason I think it's wrong is because I spoke about constantly rebalancing, so that you're only ever holding like 5% of Omega risk or whatever. And I think that's really wrong, because if you take a 5% entry in Omega risky Axie at the start of the year, and every time it grew, you constantly rebalanced a little bit off into Bitcoin and ETH, you would have like destroyed a home run trade by constantly taking that like upside off the table every time it got bigger than 5% of your portfolio. So you're really damaging your portfolio growth. Basically, you've done the hard work and now you're like ruining it. So instead, I think using the pyramid as an entry tool, and then when you exit the trade, rebalancing to the pyramid makes sense. But while the trade is running, you should just let it run, because if it's doing well, you've like bought something awesome, and you should like see that out till the trade itself ends. But I'll do an updated version because it's difficult to talk through and hard to visualize without pictures and shit.
No, I think it makes sense though. It reduces that value of like the high beta portion of your portfolio. All right, this is the final question because my family is about to walk in the door. I may have children in my lap in minutes. At the end of every episode, Cobie, I'm not sure if you're familiar, but we ask for alpha.
Yeah, look, I knew this was coming, obviously, because I have not thought about it actually. Because I was like, right, well, I need to really think about like the kind of things
something
that I want to talk about. And
you
like,
need me to describe it for you?
No, it's good. It's fine. It's fine. Oh, that's kind of annoying because I was like, I wanted to do this one cool, but never mind. In general, I think I read some ages ago. I can't remember. It's by a guy called Albert Summit, Alberto, who knows? And it says the tyranny is the deliberate removal of nuance, and I think in our world, which is like people getting angrier, information like what is true is getting harder and harder to be discerned or whatever. You should be wary of anyone that is intentionally removing or ignoring nuance from a conversation, because often those people have some kind of agenda. So yeah, Albert, I don't know who it was. I think he was right. Tyranny is a deliberate removal of nuance, and critical thinkers will never encourage you to remove nuance from your thinking or your argument. Instead, you should always try and add it. And being a structured critical thinker is probably the most important thing going into the 2022 and then following decade. So probably that.
That's it. Thanks everybody for being here. Family is in. Appreciate you, Cobie. Epic. Loved it. Thanks so much. We'll talk to everybody next time on Up Only TV. Go to uponly.tv/FTX. Make a trade there today. Do all the things that you know that you can do on FTX. Appreciate y'all being here, sticking through with us for a long time, long episode. We had fun. Hope you had fun. Make a trade on FTX. uponly.tv/FTX. Catch you next time. Bye-bye.